Call to order the July 6, 2026 meeting of the Yarmouth Board of Health. So it's time to determine whether we have a quorum or not. Scott, are you here?
I am present.
Larry, are you here?
Here.
Hillard, okay. We have a quorum, that's great. So let's go on. Number 3 is public comment. Opportunity for anyone from the audience here or anyone zooming in would like to make a statement.
I don't see any hands on the.
No hands up? Sure. Just, do you want to be?
Comment on the topics on the agenda, or just
Yes.
in general?
In general, certainly, we prefer it's on a topic for sure. So if someone, I'm sorry?
When the topics, every topic that's called, then you get public comment on that one specifically as well.
At that moment, yes. But this is a time to spend most of your time at the mic, that's all. No. So just introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Brian Hardy, 14 Hilsey Road, Yarmouth Port, to talk about the goat farm, specifically BHSG 26-1 and BHST 26-1. My wife and I are full-time residents, live roughly 50 yards from the Bromst. Very nice people. We've met them on walking. We have a view of their beautiful property from 3 sides of our home, and really, really admire the property. We do have, my wife and I both have concerns about the impacts, both short and long term on the farm, to the neighborhood, to the waterways, if a project is approved. We do oppose the scale of the farm because our concerns are the following, but not limited. I feel like this is Groundhog Day. We were here not about a year ago with Conservation. Now we're here with Board of Health. And I'm going to keep these specific to the Board of Health type of concerns. We were presented, the public was presented, the farm, best practice farm management, and while extensive, it lacks a ton of detail, okay? It's very high level. More specifically, there are no specific details on mitigating the control of flies, rodents, and other pests attracted to the animal feed and waste. The plan is also missing detailed specifics on odors and what that detailed mitigation plan looks like. If this project is approved, I ask the board to determine strict conditions and assure the documentation of said restrictions so that we can enforce those down the road. In addition to the above, we also have serious concerns on the animal noise, especially during feeding. It's my understanding that the animals can get loud. And then let's remember, too, that this area, while beautiful, is also a residential area, and 99% of us are full-time residents there, okay? Stormwater runoff is another issue from the pasture and the manure compost pile into the mill pond, impacting water quality, native plants, wildlife, fish, shellfishing. And then what will that impact be on the area 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now? No one knows. I feel like we're all part of this science experiment right now. The proximity of the stable to the mill pond, to Howard's Mill Pond, where there is active shellfishing, everyone knows it's well under the Yarmouth regulation of 250 feet from that high tide watermark or that high watermark. Section 202-2D specifically states not less than 250 feet from any high watermark of any source of shellfishing. Well, that beautiful barn is, a lot closer than 250. Impacts of animal waste runoff into the streets and the salt pond with the tidal waters coming in and out of the Mill Creek. What happens to recreational activities such as swimming, kayaking, fishing? Everyone in the neighborhood is concerned. 4th of July just happened, a lot of people around, families floating around on tubes under the bridge, on Keveney Bridge. It was great to see, right? But are those kids going to be able to do that down the road? No one knows, okay? No one's taken any water samples. There's no standard, I guess, that's been set, any measurements. So I do want the Board of Health to consider any and all of these measures. I'm not adverse to the goats. I prefer 6 goats, not 30 with 2 donkeys. But I understand that we have to follow the law and respect the neighbors, but I did want my concerns heard. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming out. All this, has reappeared. And just, sir, if there's some material that you would like to provide us,
I submitted my letter earlier.
okay, any other material, it's helpful to get educated. And so send it to the health department. This board will get it and spend time on it. So if you have that kind of material, please send it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Speakers and that relevant to that topic now?
Sure, absolutely. Why don't you come up, introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Paul Fitzgerald. My wife and I live on Kevanny Lane. We live next to the bridge, adjacent to the mill pond. My property borders on the mill pond on both the Bonstable side, on the mill pond side, and on the estuary side. We have lived at Kevanny Lane for about 45 years. We enjoy the resources. We swim, we fish, we kayak, we boat on that area with many of our friends and neighbors from both Yarmouthport and Barnstable. As Brian was saying, if you happen by the bridge this past few days, you would see many people swimming and enjoying the cool temperatures of the water, especially my neighbors, the Kitteridge family, who came down in mass with 40 to 50 of their family and friends, who then come to the bridge at the high tide. They jump off the bridge, they swim in the pond and in the bridge side, and then when the tide turns, they tube all the way down to the short wharf in Yarmouthport. So it's a very well-utilized resource. This resource is precious to me and my family, the neighborhood, and the local community. I'm speaking tonight to be certain your committee knows how important it is that you look out for the health of this special area for the many who love and use it. There were many years when the Hallett's Mill Pond was closed to shellfishing and swimming, secondary to the fecal contamination coming from Anthony's Restaurant. We are concerned about this possibility happening again. We are questioning the likelihood of runoff percolating from the pasture to the pond. We question the density of animals that are proposed and the storage of fecal matter next to the pond, which is about 100+ feet from the pond. Finally, we question why no offering of monitoring the safety of the runoff into the pond was offered by the application. Thank you for letting me speak.
Oh, by all means.
Any questions for me?
Thanks for coming up. Board members? Not at this time, though. Thank you.
The only question I had was, I'm wondering if we should hold, since there seems to be so many people commenting on this, we should wait until that comes up rather than, there are people here that aren't here for that reason, and they're going to be delayed.
Oh, absolutely. These
Yeah.
people get another chance to come up once we work our way through the agenda. That's all.
Well,
For sure.
my thought is that we could be here for quite a bit of time. I'm wondering how fair that is to people that are here for another reason. I don't know, is that,
People will be able to come up
Okay.
again when that topic is discussed,
right,
so we can move along on this.
okay,
That's all. We've always conducted that way. It's just,
okay.
it's usually not by the rules, but I think it's very helpful for the public. Okay, anyone else? Any hands up there?
So are we waiting for that agenda item? What's the decision?
Yeah, why don't we just wait for it? It looks like that's the feeling here a little bit, and you'll get the opportunity to certainly speak. So my eye is certainly not going to be on the clock, okay? So everyone gets a fair shot at it and share their thoughts, educate the board, and so on, okay? So let's call public comment as done. Okay, so number 4 on the agenda is the approval of grant funds.
Sorry, you had someone on Zoom for public comment?
Okay,
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
yes, we can.
Sorry, my name is Rachel Rosen, and I live at 128 Water Street. And I did just want to, because I'm at work and won't be able to stay on the whole time, I wanted to add to what you already heard. I know you're going to be talking about the 100 Mill Lane, but I am a gastroenterologist and my business is fecal matter. And I did just want to add to what was already brought up, in particular, the timeline that was discussed. We've done this experiment before. When the Belazekians previously had this land, they had multiple animals on there, which is when Mill Pond was closed because of fecal contamination. And in fact, it was only after the Belazekians moved out and the animals were removed that Mill Pond was open, and it was reopened even before Anthony's was closed. So I want to be very clear about the timeline, that the fecal contamination very much points to the Belazekians and having a farm there rather than just Anthony's. And I really want to stress that, as you have heard, there's no plan for water monitoring. I would strongly advocate that the number of goats be relative to the amount of usable land, not the amount of total acreage, because putting 40 goats and 2 donkeys on what's essentially 1.3 usable acres is extremely excessive. So I just want that point to be heard before I have to log off. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's move along here on the approval of the grant funds. Everyone had that in their packet, and what I had done is just made up an equation for this and just added up, I guess, what each board member who submitted the numbers just added up and divided by the number of board members. So just added up the amounts that they wanted allotted and divided once again by the number of board members. And that's where these numbers came from. So just trying to make sure that, we all had input and it was, equitable. So this is something we need to vote on tonight. So what are your thoughts, board members?
I'm fine with approving this, but I do have one concern, that we only gave 5,000 to the VNA, because in their presentation, they said they served 384 Yarmouth residents. And I think that that's a lot of bang for our bucks, and that they represent the health department in ways that the health department cannot do because of the small number of staff they have. And because of the volunteer board and what we are able to do. So that's my only comment about it. But I'm happy to make a motion to approve the Human Service Grants Awards as shown in our agenda packet.
Scott, Larry, thoughts?
I wasn't at that meeting, so I didn't
Okay.
see how.
I mean, I would agree with Mary, as far as maybe a reallocation of some funds to the VNA. I'm content with the rest of it, but I would agree maybe we could make a small adjustment there.
We can tonight. Tonight's the time to do that. And if someone wants to make an adjustment to the numbers, we can do it now and then move along eventually to a vote on this tonight. So we need the specifics of it. If you want money shifted from a different organization to the VNA or multiple of these nonprofits. And Larry, you're part of it. You may not have been at the meeting, but certainly you're on board with this. In
Yeah,
one
I
way or
didn't
another.
even get a copy.
Was it in the packet? Here you go.
I didn't see it in there.
So in the minutes, you could see what some of the nonprofits had requested and what they received last year. There were a couple of new organizations that sent in an application this year. so once again, there'll be a vote for the decision here for what we saw in the packet, or it's making an adjustment and voting on that. So we do need a motion one way or another.
You have a suggestion, Mary, that how you want to change it?
I would probably decrease some of the support here, but I think maybe if we could just keep that in mind for next year. I'm happy with doing that and leaving this as is. The problem is, there's a lot of need in our community, you know, and all of these organizations, they all came before us, and they all are doing wonderful things to help the citizens in our community. So I like seeing all of them get some of the small amount of funding that we have to award. So I make a motion that we approve the Human Service Grants Awards as shown in our agenda for this night's meetings, with the thought that maybe we think about increasing at least VNA next year come around.
Okay, thanks.
I second it.
Second that.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, see, is there none? All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, fine, let's move along. It's always nice to give money away. Okay, number 5, 88 and 100 Mill Lane, application for stable license and goat license. And we heard about this quite some time ago. Barry, when was the application submitted?
The application was submitted a week ago Monday, a week ago today, from today,
To us.
to us, yeah.
Okay, I didn't see that in the
It
packet
came
I
in,
received.
it came in after that we had already posted the packets and put the packets together.
Okay.
So they were already out before it came in, so.
Okay, so we haven't seen it as a board. Okay, let's proceed.
Before the filing deadline.
Oh, did, okay.
So what are we looking at from this petitioner tonight? What are they asking for? Because that
They're
wasn't
asking
clear.
they're looking for a stable permit for 30 goats and 2 small donkeys, so 30 miniature goats and 2 donkeys.
Does it involve variances?
There are variances with the property already that stay with the property that were granted from the health department for the stable previously.
Thank you.
Yep. It's like a septic variance when, if you move,
Right.
that stays in the ground and it's,
Right.
so,
So there's problems.
yeah.
And before we get started, what's the status of the stable regulation? You know, that I think was sent to town council for review, which, and it wasn't based upon this, it was really based upon having really old regulations that the board has not looked at. I think the
That
last time
is-
this was revised was
This-
2007, I think.
Yes, correct. The town council is still in the process of reviewing the regulations that have been updated through our intern and
Okay.
our current Mary. So they have, but that's, the application is in before
Sure, oh, absolutely.
for this regulation. And I did give you a copy of the regulation in front of you also, and a copy of the application, so.
Okay, let's begin. Just introduce yourselves and welcome.
Thank you. I don't know if this mic is on, but thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the Board of Health. For the record, my name is John Kenny. I'm an attorney with the law office in Centerville. I come here before you this evening representing Good Hope Farm. Here with me this evening as well is Attorney Bill Henchy from the law offices of William C. Henchy, LLC in Orleans. Dan Osha, a professional engineer and professional land surveyor from Down Cape Engineering. The proprietors of Good Hope Farm, Natasha and Oliver Bromps, seated behind me, and Leo Kakunas, a local farm advocate and a long-term representative of the State Farm Bureau. Mr. Chairman, I have the service of United States Postal Service for notice of the abutter and for an email notice with the town with authorization from the town administrator saying that the town is aware of the meeting and has no problem going forward with it.
So there are two abutters, and one's the town, and another's
Correct.
somebody's residence, I assume.
You want me to give them to you or to Mr. Lewis?
Mr. Lewis can take it. Obviously, we're not going to sit and read and have people wait for that.
Thank you.
We're here on behalf of Good Hope Farm, seeking a stable license and a goat license, and this was for the property at 88-100 Mill Lane in Yarmouthport. The plans to have 2 miniature donkeys and 30 Nigerian dwarf goats. As a little bit of background, it was one of the people that spoke talked about the Bill Zekin family owning the property. They bought it in 1984. In March of '88, they applied for and received a stable license for 32 animals. At that time, they also applied and received a variance to allow the corral and the fence to be less than 50 feet from the roadway. In August of 1990, they applied for and received variances relating to the location of the stable. There were multiple variances. Those have been submitted as part of the application. Since then, the fencing, the corral, and the barn have all been continuously maintained in conformity with the prior approvals of this board. The Bromps acquired the farm in 2025, and fortunately, I think for everybody in the neighborhood and in the town of Yarmouth and on the Cape, their plan is to continue to use the property as a farm, as opposed to opening it up for further development, such as some trophy luxury homes. Their proposed use of the property saves this property from future development, at least for the time being. The Good Hope Farm Plan was reviewed and approved by the Town of Yarmouth Conservation Commission. Some of the opponents of the farm appealed to the Mass DEP, and the farm prevailed there. And Attorney Henchy, whom I'm sure will address some of the comments that were made before this hearing was opened, handled that DEP appeal. If you read the prior variances going back, it was either 1988 or 1990 variance, there is a note in there about Mill Pond being closed for shellfishing. That was before the Bilzikins put their 32 animals on the farm. And I believe the Mill Pond is closed for shellfishing currently. And there are no animals in the farm. So to say that the closing of Mill Pond for shellfishing, et cetera, ties directly in line with the Bilzikins having animals on the farms is frankly just not accurate. As far as our waste management plan and how all that will be handled, I'm going to turn it over to Dan Olsher, the engineer, and then we'll have Attorney Henchy address some of the claims that were made about the impacts on the waterways, et cetera. Dan?
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Dan Ojala. I'm a land surveyor and civil engineer with Down Cape Engineering in Yarmouthport, and helping the Bromps to Good Hope Farm out with permitting on the project. Natasha and Oliver are seasoned farmers. They've had a beautiful farm in New York for over 11 years. They know what they're doing. It's a well-run operation down there, and they hope to continue that up here. In order to satisfy all the conditions and concerns, we've made some nice improvements to the property from even what the Bilzikins were at. And what John said was accurate. Jerry Garnick, old-time attorney, had testified that it had been closed 15 to 20 years before the Bilzikins ever started the farm here. Hallett's Mill Pond had closures, so that's an accurate statement. But nonetheless, they instructed me to be extremely cautious, do whatever we can to prevent any impacts to Hallett's Mill Pond. So to that event, there's some important features that you should understand. For future composting up on the hill there in a closed structure, we made provisions for that, but you'll see on note B, there's a manure-covered area. It's a roof covered on a concrete pad for the manure. When you have issues with a farm, it's almost always related to odor and manure management practices. And so there's a dedicated drainage system in case something were ever to leak out of that trailer, but it's covered and will be removed weekly, which is right per your guidelines. So almost all the problems that you'll ever see is a big manure pile that nobody ever turns, and it goes bad, and it 100% a nuisance. Natasha and Oliver are going to live here. It's their home. They run a very clean operation now, and they want to continue that. The last thing they want is any issues like that. And so what we have done is kind of a twofold thing. We've created a special swale and berm all along, circling like a necklace around this barn. So any runoff that would come on the high side of this, almost everything heads down towards the swale on the south side. But to the extent that anything heads towards the mill pond, we intercept it with a ditch and a little ridge along with a fence. And what that does is captures all that water and shunts it down to the low side. And down there, it spreads on hundreds and hundreds of feet of a shallow swale. So you can see here what happens. We build it up about 12 inches. And so you've got about 6 feet by 12 inches deep by hundreds of feet of storage capacity and filtration. So although the manure, as you can read from the plan, will be picked up before storms and trucked off-site regularly, to the extent that a small amount does, it'll enter a berm and dissipate. And you can see that's all along an even contour line. So it'll be a nice wide area, and it'll all filter out and filter through that berm. And we submitted drainage calculations showing that that will indeed filter and treat the runoff from the storm. And again, that's moving to the east, where there's a large freshwater drainage system, a little bit of saltwater intrusion, and then it heads out to the north. So you even if it were somehow breached, which we say it will not, and the calculations show it weren't, it doesn't enter the mill pond. Everything's moved away from there. And of course, the salt marsh, as you know, is generally a nitrogen sink that will take nutrients and all day long. But it'll be infiltrated in the field on site, which is a big improvement over even what was there before. And again, a nice interception. Note E covers that and the details on the plan to show that fence and swale and berm shunts all the water down and spreads it out across the entire site, so it's all kept away from the mill pond. So we feel that between the high-end manure management with a roofed, sealed type structure, you lift up, put it in, close the cover, that'll keep the flies down, it'll keep the manure safe and frequently brought off site to avoid odors. And then to the extent that anything leaks out, it's a sealed pad with a drain to subsurface drainage. So nice, robust, state-of-the-art system for that manure management, which is almost always the concern. There's a beautiful flower garden over here, and again, it's just a beautiful property. It's a landmark thatched roof barn. All the stalls are still intact. The Bilzikins also had a number of cows on the property. Our number of animals in terms of pounds is much down from where they had licensed before. So it's treading more lightly on the footprint. It's a beautiful property, and it's a right to farm type state, and we appreciate you working with us. I would say with respect to the wastewater, there's numerous theories on why that might be. I would point to people walking their dogs. There's unpicked up litter all along there, and there's Anthony's, but honestly, waterfowl. It's a haven for huge geese and heron and otters and all kinds of marine and vertebrae and invertebrate that are in the water there. So who knows exactly where all that comes from? But ours is going to be shunted on site, treated on site, and simply will not be a problem. So to burden the farm with extra off-site testing, I don't think that warrants it. Be glad to answer any questions if there are any.
Just to point out, from 15 feet away, it's really hard to make out any of the details that you're pointing to. This is what was in the packet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Digitally, you can zoom in on it.
It's tough to get the details. You're talking to 5 volunteers up here with not a lot of background interpreting all this. Just want to point that out for the public to be aware of that. This is pretty tough. This is what I understand was submitted to the department. Am I correct?
Well, the PDF is a full-size view plan, 24 by 36. So if you're operating on a computer system, you can zoom in and look at full scale. If you print it out to scale to fit to an 8.5 by 11, that's what comes out. But the image that was submitted online is full clarity, digital, perfect view. You can zoom in and look at it. Again, if you'd like full-size copies, we're happy to do that. If there's a continuance, you can certainly look at it for 2 weeks, however you would like to go.
So was it submitted digitally and you copied it? Is that it?
It was online,
Yeah,
everything's
so
digital.
we're not looking at what they submitted, because they submitted it digitally.
Right, and
copied by the health department.
so, I mean, we've been working together for years. Generally, we get a full-scale plan for all the, the septic variances that we do here. That's why I'm surprised, surprised, that's all.
Yeah, no, I would agree, not all changes for the better, but Natasha was instructed to do it just digitally, and so that's what we did. But I did notice in the PDF, when you're doing small, and boom, it's a huge plan in that digital PDF. So if you have the capability, certainly the engineering department can print out full-size plans, but I don't know if you want to change the policy or ask for full-size paper, we're happy to do it. I do prefer a large print myself.
Could you speak to rodents and other pests?
Sure. Again, Natasha and Oliver are seasoned farmers. They're aware of rodent issues. They used sealed locking legal cabinets to put feeding grain in that have zero holes in them, and even a rodent's, whatever they are, 8,000 PSI teeth can't get through steel. So that meets your regulation there. That's all the feed. Of course, if it's out in the field, generally it'd be more looking like oats and hay. There's dogs and other things, but certainly what you can do is make sure that there's no holes in your feed bins, sealed floors, sealed steel enclosures with locks on them, and that's how they handle it.
And that the manure is picked up regularly?
Absolutely. So the manure, to the extent that before any rainfall, we will go out and generally the goats, we move the feeding stations around so that, they have fresh grass when they leave. But most of the waste is near the feeding station, so it's fairly easy to rake up. But they take the little tractor out there, rake it up, and run it in the compost. And we've promised to keep an eye on the forecast, and before any significant rainfall, do an additional sweep up of the pastures. And it's not as onerous as you should think, because she said it's usually right around the feed stations where you get 99% of the manure.
Thank you. And how about the comment about usable acres of land?
So we're not grazing large animals. These are Nigerian dwarf goats, and they don't have a huge mass. If you were talking about 2,000-pound heifers, you certainly need some acreage for those. But Natasha, with her experience in the number of pastures and the ability to rotate and move the feed stations, is very comfortable in this. We do have the fenced garden area would be potentially some expansion if ever needed, but she feels very comfortable with the room that's here because they simply are small hoofed. They don't beat up the pasture. And we should note that this pasture has there's an on-site well, so we're not using any of your water, but they have an extensive irrigation system. Mm-hmm. One of the problems, you think, oh, don't do irrigation, but when you have a drought like this, you want that grass and turf nice and healthy so it can absorb the nutrients and not die off and create dusty runoff. So to that extent, they're going to keep the on-site irrigation well and keep it looking nice and lush for the environment as well as for the goats.
Can I just answer that as well?
Natasha Brahms.
Natasha Brahms. Good evening, everyone. Dan was absolutely correct. Just a couple quick things to add. Our irrigation system at home is it's on actually a timer. It does not go if it's wet or raining. It's all automated, and we control that manually. So there's not a condition here. There's never muddiness or wetness in our pastures, number one. Number two, we're very, very active, to Dan's point, on ensuring that they're healthy pastures. Goats generally do not eat off the pasture. They're hay-driven, at least mine. But I just wanted to share that. And then one additional comment. We actually have quite extensive, we do not have a fly issue at home. We use all natural fly predators, and we just don't have waste around or food around to attract rodents or flies. It's honestly not an issue for us, thankfully.
I have a question for you. The farm in New York, what kind of animals and what kind of size was it?
So we still have the farm. It's actually, we have over 50 goats, so we're downsizing to align with your regulations, actually. It's an hour north of New York City in a very dense neighborhood. We're very loved in the community, I may say, and we've had no issues. We live there, as Dan mentioned, and really love our community.
And how big is the farm?
So it is 27 acres, 25 acres. But again, to Dan's point, the goats are actually on much less. They're probably on an acre or 3/4 of an acre. They just don't, that's not, I don't have them roaming like that. They're paddocked.
Thank you.
By contrast, it's about 11 acres, including the wetland here. And Natasha has committed to buying that same storm-sensitive system that actually goes on the internet, looks when the rain is coming, and cuts out the irrigation when needed. And she's committed to installing that system in the barn now.
There was a comment about usable acreage and density of animals. What can you tell us about that?
So manure management is the most important part, and, how big the animals are and how much damage they'll do to the turf is always a factor. Your regulations do talk about, animals per acre, which would meet that technically, but, the small size, you could be horses with your regulation versus these little goats, so world of difference. Some of the other agencies look at, tons per acre and so forth. In terms of the animal mass, and we're right within those guidelines, even for a grazing animal. And as Natasha said, these generally just eat the hay that you put out. They don't even eat the turf. So we feel very comfortable with a managed area and keeping after the manure and carefully managing it. There will be absolutely no problems with it, with the density of this farm.
What are the goats kept for?
Well, meat and breeding, but milk would be a third thing that they'd look at maybe in the future. I'll just leave it.
So currently it's
No, you have to come to the mic, otherwise the public can't hear you.
currently it's animal husbandry. Basically, like we discussed with the commission, there's no current intention to do more than that. If we intended to do anything more than that, we'd be right back in front of you. So that's it.
If I could make a comment, there's a big difference in farm animal wastes and their impact ecologically. And small ruminants really have the least impact as far as nitrogenous wastes of any of the farm animals. Pigs, of course, are highly, make a large impact. Poultry, bovine, horses would come next, but the small ruminants make really a small impact. If you're, listing farm animals as their impact on the environment. So I think that's important to point out because there's a big difference between cows on a property and goats on a property. That's a big difference. And we can provide some scientific data to substantiate all that.
Yeah, that certainly would help
Yeah.
the rest of us.
Mr. Chairman, if there are no further questions for Mr. Rozier, I'd like to pass it over to Mr. Attorney Henchy and ask him to address some of the concerns that were raised about the impacts on Mill Pond and waterways.
Oh, by all means, don't go anywhere, but sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, let me, for the record, William Henchy, I'm an attorney up in Orleans. Having served as the chair of a conservation commission for, 12 or 13 years, I want to express my sympathy with you trying to read an 8.5 by 11 plan, which is really a reduction of a large-sized plan. But to elucidate that, so I was engaged by Oliver and Natasha Bromps to represent them when the neighbors, who I'll circulate for you later some of the material that was sent around the neighborhood, when they all appealed the approval of this plan by the Yarmouth Conservation Commission. And that went to Mass DEP. And as we took a look at the application for the appeal, many of the same concerns that have been articulated to you tonight, and I'm sure you'll hear more of, were expressed to Mass DEP. And having in mind that the Mass DEP appeal process can be extraordinarily lengthy, I mean, I can tell you the last adjudicatory decision that I tried was tried in December of 19. We got a decision in the summer of 2024, so it's a 5-year appeal period. So we work very carefully to modify the plans, which are the ones that you're trying to decipher on that 8.5 by 11, to absolutely ensure that there would be zero, and I mean zero, alteration of any of the wetlands either on the site or adjacent to the site. And that specifically includes Hallett's Mill Pond and the Salt Marsh and any of the abutting properties. So what we did was Dan went back and made a slight redesign of the plans. As I think John has mentioned to you, these pastures were approved back in 1988, and it's too bad you don't have the packet that was supplied in front of you tonight, because we submitted in there the 1988 plan that was approved by the board for the grazing and use of all of these pastures by animals. And we've also included for you photographs of the former Belzekian farm going back to 1988. We've given you a number of the renewals of those applications all the way from 1998 through 2009. We gave you the minutes of the 1990 hearing where Jerry Garnick, as Dan has pointed out, is an old-time lawyer. Jerry had been here forever when I started years ago. Stated to the board in August of 1990 that Hallett's Mill Pond had been closed for shellfishing for 20 years, because all of these same concerns have repeatedly been raised and brought to the board's attention. So what Dan did on the plan, by way of explanation, and when you see the blow up, you can see it. What Dan did was to design a berm completely, or a new berm completely around all of the pastures, so that any runoff that hits, any rainwater that hits those pastures and starts to run off across the surface, which may or may not include some animal waste, would be contained within that berm, would not go anywhere off-site, and emphatically would not go down to Hallett's Mill Pond or off-site. Because DEP, what we were asking DEP to do was not to approve the plan that was submitted to the Conservation Commission, but to determine that there would be no alteration of any of these resource areas so that we could go forward without engaging in that arduous appellate process. And you can only do that under the Mass DEP regulations by proving that you will have no impact on any wetlands and you will not alter any wetlands. And alteration means includes any changes to the quality of any receiving water. So any fresh water can't go into the salt pond coming off of this site. Any animal waste can't go into the salt pond coming off of the site. If there was any of that even remotely possible, DEP could not approve the request that we had made. I have for the board, Mr. Chairman, I'll pass them up to you, or should I give them to your administrative? You tell me, Mr. Chair, how do you want me to?
Why don't you take them here? Thanks.
I've got copies for each of you. And you'll see that in May of this year, Mass DEP, after the Conservation Commission had already heard all of these concerns and approved the project, granted us our negative determination of applicability. And in the letter that's attached there from Mass DEP, which constitutes their decision, I've underlined the relevant portion for you. Mass DEP determined specifically that the operation of this farm would not alter any wetland resource area. So that, with all respect to the commentators who are expressing a concern, and expressing a concern is a very different, horse of a different color, no pun intended, from saying that something will happen. Mass DEP determined after an exhaustive review that what was proposed here would not result in any alteration to Hallett's Mill Pond, to the riverfront, to the freshwater wetlands, to the salt marshes, to anything off-site. So that, respectfully, with regard to all of the abutter comments, that closes the door on any claim that this thing will result in an alteration of water quality, a degradation of water quality, and so forth. And it is notable that the abutters, and there were a whole bunch of them who took their appeal to DEP, did not appeal that determination. So that's a final determination by Mass DEP that this thing will not result in any alteration of the water quality. To Mr. or Dr. Benzias, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, sir.
Benicia.
Benicia, I slaughtered it, I apologize.
All right.
To your observations, we submitted to Mass DEP, and I'm happy to resubmit to you, an awful lot of information about quantities of manure. And our research ended up exactly where the gentleman indicated, that these kinds of animals generate orders of magnitude less of animal waste than the larger ruminants or horses and so forth, because the abutters had raised exactly that same issue with Mass DEP and had suggested that there were going to be all these issues with animal waste and so forth. And that matter was also reviewed by Mass DEP and rejected. So I guess in summary, I don't want to take all night with you folks, but in summary, as to the doctor's claim, the gastroenterologist's claim earlier, that these waters have been closed as a result of the operation of the farm previously and would be affected here. The first thing I would say is your own records reveal that in 1990, this board was told by a local attorney that this pond had been closed to shellfishing for 20 years prior to there ever being a farm here. It is closed today, as Dan observed, and there is no farm there today. But most importantly, Mass DEP is carefully considered. We had a very high burden to meet to show there would be no alteration whatsoever. And Mass DEP has agreed with that, and nobody has appealed that determination. So I respectfully suggest that although it's certainly fair for people to express and articulate concerns, we've addressed those appropriately before the Yarmouth Conservation Commission and Mass DEP, and we've demonstrated that there will be no alteration whatsoever. And I would urge you, when you get a chance to look at a PDF of the plan, to take a look at the details that Dan has provided on that swale. There will be a new swale encircling these entire pastures in order to ensure that that absolutely will not happen. I'm happy to answer any questions. I know the board has probably got a long night ahead of it, so I'm happy to respond to you if you have any questions. If not, happy to yield to the next person.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to clarify one thing, too, kind of supplement what Attorney Henchy said. Attorney Garnick, when he made his comments in 1990, was not appearing as an advocate or as an attorney on behalf of a client before the Board of Health. He was appearing as an abutter who owned property in this neighborhood, and he spoke in favor of the farm. So it wasn't an attorney coming here and making comments on behalf of an applicant. He was an abutter at that time.
I have a question about Mill Pond. There's no water quality monitoring done on that, is there? Too small?
I don't know why. That's the county does the regulation, the monitoring on those, so.
But there must be some monitoring done in order to close the shellfish beds.
Yeah, I'm not for sure who does that monitoring. I can find out for us.
Okay.
Nice to be able to see some of the conclusions the state came to. I mean, it would be nice to see a summary that hopefully the board can take a look at, just
That's it right here.
to get educated. That's all in there?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Great.
That's the Mass DEP decision.
Oh, the whole thing, great. Perfect, thank you.
Notification of the right of appeal in about 5 different languages.
Okay. You mentioned, it sounds like a key year, 1988. What's changed, was it 38 years, 40 years, whatever, on the property? I mean, water changes, shorelines change. What's different 38 years later there?
I mean, I think
Amazingly, Dan Odula from Down Cape Engineering, amazingly, very, very little. The same caretaker has been there that entire time. He's maintained the mow line. I was looking at aerials year after year after year. It's like a time capsule. They did redo the barn, I'm going to guess about 18 years ago, 15 years ago. They had a specialist from Holland or wherever came over and redid the thatch roof. In fact, anecdotally, he was up there and he says, Dan, he says, I do these all over the world. He says, I think this is the most picturesque place I've ever done a thatched roof because it's just such a beautiful, beautiful and picturesque area. But it's like a time capsule now. What Jerry was speaking about specifically is where Emmeline Grise is across the street, that big field over there. They had put a couple of cows over there, and Dave Mason, who was a health agent at the time, had mentioned to them. So Tom Kelly came in and they got the permit. And it's the minutes of August 20th, 1990, where Jerry Garnick and his wife expressed that they loved the cows and they were in support, and it had been closed for 20 years. That has since been, we divided it in half for Emlyn when she bought it from Bill Zekians, and then, but she's only built on one of the two lots. And other than that, it's almost identical to how it's always been. But this is a real time capsule. It's almost zero change since Bill Zekin was in there for all those years.
If I might, Dan, Mr. Chairman, just, I know you haven't seen these materials, it's really too bad, but I guess next time we'll submit paper ones too and online. So there are a series of photographs from back in the 80s and 90s that are included that'll show you it's really, to Dan's point, it's almost exactly what it is now. In fact, the only thing that's really different is going to be the swale that Dan is creating to contain all of the, any of the runoff. And the other thing that's in the plans are the original applications from 1988 showing the plan of the pastures then. And if you compare that to what's proposed now, it's nearly identical. Dan's right. It is like a time capsule out there. If you take a look at Google Earth, you'll see all of that.
What's the plan with the milk? What's going to happen to the milk that's produced in the farm?
I don't know.
I think the kids drink it.
I was about to say, during the period that there's kids on the mother, they'll drink it and then they dry up. From time to time at home, I will make my family cheese, but that's as far as it goes.
Thank you. A lot of material. Anybody have any questions, thoughts?
I think maybe the board might want to take a trip out there, take a look at it,
Yeah, site visit is definitely indicated here.
and then look at the plan that Mr. Ozil presented and look at it. And also, I could look into more detail on the ecological impact of goat and donkey manure and give you some objective data for us to consider.
Miniature donkeys.
Pardon?
Miniature donkeys.
Miniature donkey.
And again, I think it's every 3 days we plan on cleaning up all the pastures, and then before every rainstorm we committed to as well. So I think it'll be a little bit better than most typical goat farms.
I neglected to mention that. That's not just a volunteer. That was a specific requirement of the Conservation Commission, and we pointed that out to Mass DEP, that not only is everything to be picked from the fields every 3 days, but anytime there's a forecast for, I think it was more than a half an inch of rain, they are specifically to be picked before the onset of the precipitation. And I can provide you with the Conservation Commission's approval as well. Which also, by the way, was not appealed. The only thing that was appealed was the state permit, not the local Conservation Commission permit under the town's bylaw. That was not appealed at all. And then I've told you how the state appeal came out.
Does anybody know, do the setbacks for a stable differ on the Conservation Commission for the Conservation Commission versus what the Board of Health setbacks are? Do you know if they're similar or was there any scientific basis for coming up with these setbacks to begin with?
That was, the revision, I think, was 2007 the last time, so I don't know where any of this came from, obviously.
I just can't envision why a stable has to be more than 100 feet from any building or structure used for human habitation. I've never seen that before anywhere. I don't know where that came from.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe somebody has a reason for
Yeah, we have no objection to that because it doesn't happen to affect us, but
Okay.
we did note, and Leo did, a lot of times there's barns attached to the farmhouse all over this country, so that just seemed a little bit odd.
Yeah, your regulations kind of go between somebody having a few chickens in their backyard versus a commercial farm, and this is a commercial farm, so frankly, a lot of your regulations don't appropriately apply to this application.
So would you like to set up a site visit next week?
Yeah, just trying to organize it with, and so for sure, I mean, we need to get educated, and we owe it to the public to know what we're doing. Very helpful giving a description of the property, but getting down there, walking around. I mean, you know, I cycle by there a lot, but not looking for any of this.
It's greenhead season, so be prepared with some shirt, a long shirt, but, yeah.
They're everywhere.
So we can do that, all right? We'll organize.
Okay.
Certainly have it. I mean, if there are people here who'd like to come up now, hopefully you have more information, hopefully, from the presentations that have been made, things you want to bring to our attention.
My name is Ron Gable, and I own the property adjacent to 88 Mill Lane, where the owners plan to move a commercial goat farm. The health department has a regulation prohibiting stables from being
Excuse me, sir, could you
located
just speak
within
up a little
200
bit?
Pardon?
Just speak up a little bit? Thank you.
Shall I start over?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's better.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
My name is Ron Gable, and I own the property adjacent to 88 Mill Lane, where the owners plan to move a commercial goat farm. The Department of Health has a regulation prohibiting stables from being located within 250 feet of the high water mark of any shellfish source. From 2022 to 2024, commercial shellfishermen harvested 392 bushels of quahogs from Mill Pond, which is less than 250 feet from the owner's farm. The owners claim to have a variance that would permit them to violate the health department's regulations. But the regulations state, in quotes, "The stable permit is non-transferable. The new applicant must submit a written request, and the board will review each request on a case-by-case basis." The Department of Health should deny the owner's stable license application because it clearly violates health department regulations, and their claim to have a variance is flawed.
Thank you for coming in. Once again, we're getting opposing views here. Obviously, it makes it, just a second, it makes it pretty complicated for us.
I'm simply
Just speak into the mic. That's
Yes, I'm simply citing the regulations, your regulations.
Mr. Chairman, if I don't want to jump in like a jack-in-the-box on every comment, I'm not going to do that.
No, that's what we're here for.
But I do want to point out that if there were a significant commercial harvest from the years 2002 to 2004, the Belzekian's farm was in operation continuously from 1988 through 2009. So there was a farm there during those years. And I note that Mr. Gable has been a longtime resident and a butter of this property, I think back to 1990, either 91 or 94. And I'm curious as to whether or not Mr. Gable submitted any complaints or comments during that entire time, because he's been living next door to the Belzekian's farm for many years. And during the time frame when this commercial harvest took place, according to him, the farm was in operation. So I just want to point out, again, Mr. Chairman, I mean, I should probably pass out some of these flyers that went around the neighborhood on the last go-around. I mean, some of these concerns are just, well, just remarkable. I'll pass this up, and you all can take a look for yourself. But that's all I have to say there. Thank you, sir.
And if I could, just one rebuttal.
Of course.
Dan Ojala. It's very important, we're not in any way questioning that we need a stable permit. The Belzekians got the variances and then subsequently got stable permits every single year. The variance runs with the land. We have no question we need a stable permit, and that's why we're here. But the variances are existing, the barn exists. We're making it better with the swale and so forth, but because the variances run with the land, like a septic tank, you don't simply have to rip up the septic tank and move it just because you sell the property. Once that variance is granted, it's there, the barn is there, the uses are there, the corrals are there, and that's what we're utilizing. So that's why we A, need a stable permit, but B, do not need a variance because they've already been issued.
The Health Department regulations state that variances are non-transferable and that the applicants must apply for a variance with the existing board. So I don't believe what Mr. Ogelan asserted is true.
I would disagree. I don't know how you can move a barn, but thank you.
All right, so conflicting views, so, okay.
Good. Good evening. My name is Andrew Maker. I live at 2 Mill Lane. And just 2 points of clarification. The mill pond is seasonally closed right now. So it was open, I think, until April, which it has been for the last 4 or 5 seasons. It's closed right now seasonally. It'll open back up again in, I think, October and November to commercial shell fishing. So it's not closed right now, as was stated. And it was also stated that Mill Lane has trash and litter and dog waste up and down the road. I walk up and down the road every single day with my dogs. I pick up after my dogs, but I also pick up trash. Okay, this isn't a city street that has nip bottles everywhere. Okay, this is a very quaint road. And that leads me to demonstrate to you guys, and you'll see next week when you come out there, that Mill Lane is barely passable for 2 vehicles. So if waste is being transported out once a week, what's going to happen if there's an incident? Is Clean Harbors on standby? Do we have booms ready to deploy? There were utility vehicles right in front of 88 Mill Lane that were stuck during the blizzard. I know because I pulled them out. So what's going to happen in instances like that? And I know we can't plan for all of these emergencies, right? But these are things that we need to take into account. One additional thing that I wanted to note, my son is 13 years old. He really wanted to come tonight. He had soccer practice, so he wasn't able to make it. But my son and I swim from the bridge over to the wharf and back. And we love to do it. It's a great activity for us. We swim with the tide. He's petrified of what could happen to the quality of the water as things change. And he said to me, he said, Dad, what's the plan to test it? Because last year we also swim over at Gray's and go out Bass Hole and back. And as you guys know, Gray's was closed last year for a short period, but because there's water quality testing done. And he said, is there risk of the same thing happening here? And I said, no, not right now, because it's not tested. And I think to Ms. Craig's point, one of the things that we really need to look at is what's the plan to be proactive, or as proactive as possible, in looking at our water quality and testing it. And nowhere in any of the proposals have I seen any plan mapped out for that. So that's all. Thanks for your time.
Could I rebut?
Oh, of course.
I mean, I take objection to saying that there's trash everywhere. I absolutely did not say that. I too frequently walk that. I ride my little motorcycle and bike up and down that road. But I saved the photograph. Exhibit A is a giant poop on the south side of that road that I nearly stepped in when I was looking at the culvert. And it looked like somebody, at least a golden retriever size, had not tended after their pet. And it was right in the area that runs down into Hallett's Mill Pond. So I know firsthand that not everybody is diligent as Mr. Maker, but I did not say it's trashy. It's one of the most beautiful areas I've ever seen. And even the guy that was doing the thatched roof said it was one of the most gorgeous areas he'd ever seen in his life. It's a real treasure, and we're going to maintain it in such form.
I have a golden retriever. Wasn't mine.
Hi, my name is Jean Young. Can you hear me okay?
Welcome, yes.
I'm a neighbor, Thank you, first of all, for your work. Welcome to the new neighbors. I just have a couple of clarifications from remarks that were made tonight. I've been there since before the Belzekians built their home there. They may have applied for 30-something animals and had it renewed every year, but they never had those animals. They had 2 cows, and the 2 cows grazed on land that doesn't even belong to them anymore. They sold that off. It was across the street, across Water Street, and that was sold off, and a new house has been built there. So when they're talking about animals that were living there, the only animals that lived on the land that they're proposing to put 40 goats on and 2 donkeys had chickens and a donkey. That's all that was on that, quote, part of the land. Secondly, the Belzekians did not keep those animals there for the entire time that they owned the property. Mr. Belzekian became ill. They got rid of all of the animals, and for a long time, there were no animals there. And after the Belzekians sold that property, the people who bought it never had a dog on the property. So to say, that they're moving into a, quote, farm is just not accurate. It's prejudicing your view, and I just wanted to clarify that. I think I had some other remarks, but this whole thing makes me so upset I can't stand it. I don't have an argument with the people who are purchasing this property. I don't. I'm sure that they're lovely people. But oftentimes they like to refer to the right to farm, the right to farm. Well, the right to farm is not, and I believe you brought that up the last time. If you have 5 acres of land, you're allowed to farm 2. Actually, I think you said 5 last time, but if you'd like to reduce that to 2, that's fine with me. But it's not unconditional. You cannot jeopardize the neighborhood. You cannot jeopardize the land. You cannot jeopardize surrounding waterways. So, I like some of the remarks that you people make, but they're kind of gray. So, and as far as Jerry Garnick was concerned, Jerry is not even close to that piece of property. He's way down over on Thatcher Shore. So did he like driving by? Yeah, everybody likes driving by there. Did he like driving by when the cows escaped and pranced through my backyard? No. Having animals in that neighborhood is just not, it's not conducive to raising animals. I know you guys are concerned that they're going to put in a giant, conglomeration of houses and apartments and whatever in there. They were able to find a gentleman to purchase the property from the Belzekians, I can't remember his name, who used it as a second home for years and years and years. There are a lot of wealthy people out there who would be only too happy to have that, quote, gentleman farm without having an animal on it. And I guess, I've been there since the Pfeiffers were there. They didn't have animals on it, and that's going back more than 50 years. Anyway, I know that you will give due consideration to this. I would hate to think that, these people purchased a piece of property thinking that it was a farm. It is not a farm. It has never been a farm. Chuck and Doreen raised a couple of cows because he was really concerned about his health and he wanted to have clean food. That's why there were animals on that farm. The Pfeiffers never had any before them, and the people who purchased from the Belzekians never had animals on it, on a piece of property. Anyway, thank you guys. I know this is a tough job for you. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for coming in.
Mr. Chairman, I hate to do it again. Again, Bill Henchy for the record. If you look at the photographs that we've submitted, right away, I'm looking at right across from the main house a picture of half a dozen cows right in front of the main house. There were certainly more than 2 cows across the street. We've got another picture here with, looks like half a dozen, half a dozen horses. You know, it's one thing to just say these things from memory. Memories, as we all know, can be, you know, imprecise. We've got photographs that we've submitted to the board showing the prior use. We have a direct quote from Greg Belzekian as to their use of the farm. This has clearly been a farm. And as far as the commenter was referring to the zoning law, and it is simply a fact in Massachusetts that pursuant to Chapter 48, Section 3, if you have more than 5 acres of land, you have an absolute right to engage in agriculture, including farming, including animal husbandry, including forestry, cranberries, any manner of raising agricultural products, horticultural products, trees, landscaping materials. You know, I've run into this issue all over the Cape. I permitted an aquaponics farm over in West Barnstable where the neighbors were very surprised to hear that, notwithstanding the zoning, that the owner had a right to engage in aquaponics and farming over there in West Barnstable. They ended up loving it, but I sat in a hearing like this over in the Barnstable Town Hall with, 50 very upset neighbors over in a bucolic neighborhood in West Barnstable. Massachusetts is a right-to-farm state. This is a right-to-farm town. And regardless of whether certain people think it's appropriate or not, these folks have an absolute right under the zoning bylaws to come in here and farm, as long as they conform with conservation laws and the Board of Health regulations.
And that is the caveat,
Excuse me.
as long as they
Just
conform.
1 second. Everybody will get a chance. Just stay there, okay?
We've demonstrated that we've conformed to the conservation laws. We know that we conform to zoning. We're here making application to this board as required by law for the required stable permit. My clients are going through the process exactly as it is designed.
You mentioned 5 acres is a key number. What about if it's not all usable? If it's some of it periodically during the year or it's permanently underwater?
Well, underwater might be a different story, but that's what we've got. That's not what we've got here. We've got well over 5 acres of land. And the statute, I can direct you to it, is Chapter 48, Section 3, deals with any parcel of over 5 acres in size, not 5 acres of usable upland and the things that we've overlain in the zoning bylaws. This is a matter of state law.
So you're saying if there's 5 inches of water over 4 acres out of 5, that still applies?
You cranberry farming, or what are you doing?
Well, to use it for animals, that's what probably is very relevant tonight.
It's the answer to your question is the statute speaks of agriculture. I don't think we'd be coming in here looking for permission to do animal husbandry on land that was underwater, and we're not doing that. But the direct answer to your question is, if you have 5 acres of land, if you have a parcel of land 5 acres or more in size, you are entitled to engage in agriculture on that land.
Okay.
And, blueberries, cranberries, there are wetland species that grow and result in saleable products.
Sure.
But that's not what we're doing. I don't want to get into the hypothetical thing with the chair tonight. But the answer to your question is, parcel of land greater than 5 acres in size under Massachusetts zoning law has an absolute right to engage in agriculture, irrespective of the zoning district. The way the statute works is that land is exempt from zoning. That's the way that one works. Subject to all of the other applicable
Sure.
laws.
I mean, the bottom line here is really for us to protect the health of the animals and people living in the area, obviously. It just, certainly water quality is key. So that's what we're trying to negotiate here.
If we were engaging in any alteration to that salt pond or any of those water bodies, we'd have a problem. But we're not, and we've demonstrated that we're not.
And Leo would know, but I think the state changed it to 2 acres. It's a little bit of a different statutory regime, but you can even have a 2-acre farm now in Massachusetts. But we're not going to try and exercise that. We've got well over 6 acres of upland and 16 whatever acres overall. So there's not even close to that threshold.
Okay, thank you. Someone else had their hand up, but you've been waiting patiently.
That's okay. I just wanted to address the attorney again. The end of that right to farm is very clear. The right to farm just protects an existing farmer from neighbors who move into the area complaining that it's a farm, it smells. It's a farm, there are flies. It's a farm, they don't like it. It protects the farmer who has been there, not somebody who's moving into the area and wants to establish a farm. There's no farm there now. They're moving in there. They want to establish a farm. They're not protected as far as the complaints from the neighbors go unless they've been there in existence. So I hear what he's saying. You're right. You can have a farm if you have 5 acres of land. You can. But you can't have it if you're jeopardizing any of the surrounding area, if you're disturbing the neighborhood. If I moved into the neighborhood after these lovely people came to the neighborhood and started to complain, saying I didn't want them there, then they would have every right to say to me, you can't complain. We have a right to farm. Well, they don't have that right yet because they don't have a farm there and they did not buy an existing farm. I can argue all night with the attorneys, and I know they're going to win, but I hope that you guys have an open mind, look at the area, look at the proposal, and decide for yourself. Oh, and by the way, the other thing is, when they went before the conservation, they applied for about half the number of goats that they're now applying for from you guys, and 1 donkey, as opposed to now they're applying for 2 donkeys. So if we go to...
We have not changed the number of our applications.
Excuse me. We can't have a discussion out there. You're certainly welcome to come to the mic, but once again, this is recorded. People are watching right now at home. So,
well, I promise we won't get into
excuse me 1 second. So everyone, we want to hear from you, but you need to come to the mic. That's all I ask.
No, it was not 40 goats, honestly. So,
Ma'am, they're applying for 30, not 40.
oh, 30. Okay. So it wasn't 30 last time either. And I remember at the end of the last meeting, somebody saying at the conservation, I don't understand why you're arguing. We're improving the land. And one of the members of the audience said, it's the 16 goats that we oppose. Anywho, you guys, good luck. You got your hands full with this one. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, for the record, my name is Leo Kukunis. I live in the town of Harwich, and I guess I've been labeled as an agricultural advocate here across Cape Cod. Have been involved in agriculture and agricultural issues on the Cape through my association with Massachusetts Farm Bureau. I was a state director for over 25 years. I just want to clarify a couple of things for the board from a nonpartisan person. I am in favor of the project, there's no doubt about it, but I do want to explain the law a little bit. People have been throwing the term around right to farm, and they say Yarmouth is a right to farm town. Harwich is a right to farm town. I wrote those articles that were approved at those towns specifically, so I know exactly what they say, and I know what they imply. It is not a law. It is not a right given to anyone who moves into town or who expects to build a farm. All it does is draw the attention to the public that there are state laws in effect that supersede local bylaws, especially when it refers to agriculture. The attorney mentioned probably the most important, and the one that I've argued for over 40 years, different court cases across the state, 40A, Section 3. It's 3A, I believe, actually, too. Now, let me clarify the language there, because it was brought up, well, 5 acres, what happens if 2 of it's wet? The statute does not define the land. The statute says 5 acres or more. Now, the other important thing to realize, the reason why, on a personal note, I left Farm Bureau is because under Governor Deval Patrick, that law was amended to 2 acres or more. Now, under this paragraph in line of 2 acres or more, they added language saying that if you have 2 acres or more and you can show production of $1,000 or more annually per acre, so that'd be $2,000 a year, then you can qualify to fall under the exemptions under 40A Section 3. So that requirement, though, is not attached to 5 acres or more. If you have 5 acres or more, you do not have to show income production from an agricultural thing. You can just own 5 acres and call yourself a farm. The other language that you need to listen to very carefully, it's very clear. It says a town shall not unreasonably regulate through bylaws. Now, what does that mean? I could be up here for hours, and believe me, I have case law this deep of different things where judges make the determination on whether a town is unreasonably regulating. So that's where you guys are at when it comes to what state law stands. And anybody that says, well, this is a right to farm law, the town gives it to this right. No. All the town did is recognize there are state laws, and we only mentioned one. 128(1A) is another one, too. There are probably 6 that are very pertinent to this case, but those are the 2 most important. So your ability here this evening is to look at the documents shown in front of you. And once again, I want to back Dr. Venetia's statement on manure. The young lady that called in when the first meeting first opened said she was a feces expert or fecal scientist. I'm not sure if you can get a degree in that or not, but if anybody knows anything about manure, I'm a manure scientist. I've been handling and dealing manure for 60 years. And he is 100% right. There's a huge difference between manures governed by different animals. Cows, chickens are absolutely the worst. 6 chickens will impact an area of land way differently than 1 horse will, or a number of goats. So I'll be happy to meet with the board afterwards, and I hope to be at the site view if you're going to go out and view the site, because I think we should discuss that more too. The key, though, here in this application, you have a pretty easy decision in my eyes. The manure is going to be picked up. It's going to be picked up on a scheduled basis. Goat manure is very easily handled. It's not like chicken manure. It doesn't have to be mixed into shavings so it can be picked up. It's not urine and fecal matter mixed together. It's very separate. And it can be handled. An enclosed trailer is that when they came to me and asked me what I thought the best manure management plan to do, the first day I spoke with the applicants was, get it off the property as fast as you can. You can compost it. You can have a stockpile, according to Massachusetts general law. But let's face it, where you're at, the best and most logical method to handle it is to remove it immediately. We talked about a small dump trailer that has a cover on it. It's going to be closed from the rain. The manure will be picked up, stored in that. We estimated, and the applicant knows how much manure she picks up now because she's not new at this, and figured once a week would be great. Gentleman is worried about traffic coming in and out. I would have to say the couple of times that I've been down in that area, I've already seen 1-ton dump trucks with trailers on the back, people doing landscaping. This situation is going to be a lot smaller. We're not talking about a tractor trailer. We're talking about a small dump trailer that you see a lot of landscapers that have. And for your decision, that's the best way to handle it. It's the best way to handle it. We've looked at food storage. Food storage is another key factor to rats. And by the way, I'll go on record tonight and say the Cape has a problem with rats, a big problem with rats. And I've been saying it for probably 30 years, and no one's listened to me. Rats are a big problem. And I think this applicant has done a yeoman's job of showing that they know it's a problem and they're going to do their best to contain it. Those metal containers are non-permeable to being eaten through. They're not a plastic barrel. And we're going to probably discuss how we're going to handle them once we get an invasive rat problem. I'm not a big advocate for using poisons. I'm just not. I'm a hawk supporter. I believe in the circle of life, especially when something dies, something else picks it up and eats it. I don't want to kill hawks with rats that have been poisoned. There's other methods that we can use, and we're going to be looking into those. Anyhow, I hope you, thank you for letting me explain the 48 Section 3 and the right to farm aspect, because that really seemed to be very confusing. And I think I've explained it well. And as far as this applicant goes, I think their presentation speaks for itself. Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Joshua Stain. I live at 128 Water Street, which is right across the street from 88 Mill, right across Water Street from 88 Mill. I have a few comments I'd like to share. I know this has been going on a while, and maybe your patience is wearing a little bit on this particular matter with other things to get to. But I'd love for you to just listen a little bit and understand our concerns and where we're coming from. We respectfully ask that the board deny the stable permit and animal permits for approximately 30 goats and 2 donkeys at 88 Mill. And the central point really is this. This is not a continuation of a limited animal use previously approved for the property. This is a new, net new, commercial scale operation. The proposal is a goat breeding operation. That, according to the applicant's own application to the Conservation Commission, would support multiple businesses, including a dairy, creamery, invasive goatscaping, a farm share delivery service, and an on-site retail store. It would introduce substantially more animals, substantially more waste, and substantially greater risk than anything previously approved at this site. And you can look at the applicant's own 59-page submission to see what was previously approved at the site. The permitting history makes it clear. In 1988, the board approved no more than 10 hoofed animals with manure removal every 48 hours. And to correct Mr. Kenny, the rest of the animals were chickens and turkeys. They were not hoofed animals, so a different regulation applied if there even was one at that time. In 1990, the board considered 17 animals and required daily manure removal and granted a limited setback variance under very different circumstances with respect to the shellfishing. I'm not sure what Mr. Lewis was referring to earlier, but I didn't see in the applicant's package any variance that's applicable here and runs with the land. In fact, as Dr. Gable pointed out, the 2000 stables regulation specifically says that each applicant must seek a variance separately, and the variance is about use. It's not about a variance to establish a barn. It's what you do with that barn that's being regulated with the permits. In 2008, the permit was only for 7 animals with daily off-site manure disposal again. And that was sort of the last of it. That was the end. And then the Belazekians moved out. And now the applicants who have come before you are proposing an initial herd of 32 hoofed animals, anticipating even an additional up to 15 goats, they told the Conservation Commission, through breeding. And they acknowledge that their initial herd would generate more than 8 tons of manure annually. And that's before accounting for offspring or bedding waste. The board should evaluate this proposal based on today's regulations and today's conditions, not as though a decades-old variance automatically carries forward. Further, the stable regulations expressly require a variance request to be considered case by case, and this case is materially different. There is a big difference, as the board pointed out, between claiming, oh, I own 15 acres or I own 100 acres, so I can have 1 acre that has 200 animals on it, versus saying there's a per head requirement as the regulations indicate. The environmental context here is also materially different. When the board discussed the prior variance in 1990, Mill Pond had been closed to shell fishing for approximately 20 years due to bacterial contamination. But since then, the town invested years of effort and substantial public resources to restore the water quality and reopen Mill Pond to shell fishing in 2012. Notably, I'll again point out that the timeline was such that the Bilezikians moved out or stopped having animals in 2009, as the permits indicate. They moved out in 2012, which is when the shell fishing was restored after years of work. And Anthony's Cummaquid Inn, which also abuts Hallett's Mill Pond, did not close for another 3 years. You can draw your own conclusions about that. The EPA continues to identify Hallett's Mill Pond from time to time as impaired for fecal coliform bacteria, so piling on by adding another 32 to 45 animals is not going to help. This board's job, I would suggest, is to protect that restored resource, not assume that conditions from 30 years ago still apply. The current proposals also do not demonstrate compliance with the stables regulations themselves. Those, as Dr. Gable pointed out, have a 250-foot setback from shell fishing waters, but the applicants place their manure storage, their stables, and portions of their corral much closer to that. As Dr. Gable pointed out, bravely, I should say, he noted all of that. And I say bravely because shortly after the Bromps bought the property, they sued him after his wife had them over for tea. So that tells you a little bit about the character that's beneath this panel of folks in front of you and what we can expect as far as neighbors trying to deal with someone who may not be compliant all the time. Also, the applicant's own permit application indicates 0 drains in the stables. I understand that the stables regulation requires drains, or at least some kind of alternative to them that is not addressed. Even the 1990 variance that was given reduced the setback only to 190 feet, and everything I just described is still even closer than that. The manure issue is particularly concerning. The applicants provided at the DEP and Conservation Commission level no detailed site-specific manure management plan showing how this volume of manure, bedding waste, nutrients, and bacteria will be prevented from reaching the adjacent wetlands in Mill Pond. I note that the nitrogen levels of goat feces and urine, actually, if you look them up, are significantly more concentrated than many animals, such as horses. Instead, the applicants offered general assurances and an anticipated 3-day pickup schedule. But manure, as you know, does not wait for the pickup truck. What happens when heavy rain falls before the pickup? What happens during flooding? What happens when stormwater moves downhill toward the connected wetlands in Hallett's Mill Pond? Think about all of those questions. The proposed manure structure also is not watertight as required by the stables regulations. It sits on a high ground on a hill above a steep slope leading down toward the wetlands and Mill Pond in an area that, when you look up on FEMA or on the Commonwealth's 2050 map, is subject to flooding and high winds. This is exactly why site-specific planning matters. The same concerns apply to the rodents, flies, mosquitoes, and disease risks associated with the concentrated livestock operations near homes and public recreation areas. As you just heard Mr. Kakuna say, we will have a rat problem. It's just a question of how we deal with it. So there you have it from a representative who supports the applicants. These are not hypothetical issues. Last July, I'll also add, Massachusetts confirmed a West Nile virus case in a goat, reinforcing that livestock health and vector management are legitimate public health considerations and not just theoretical. Also, this site's hydrology makes these concerns even more important, and you'll see this on the site visit. Engineering documents have identified runoff pathways toward Mill Pond, including connections through wetlands, catch basins, and culverts. The applicant's own engineer acknowledged that stormwater can reach Mill Pond during significant storms when he did a review back in 2012. The town's stormwater regulations, which are governed primarily and enforced primarily by the Conservation Commission, I'll note, prohibit the discharge of pollutants, including animal waste and associated contaminants, into wetlands, drainage systems, and waterways. The board has an obligation to be concerned about the health that is connected with those pollutants and discharges, and the applicants have not demonstrated how this operation will comply. Ultimately, this board is not being asked to approve the continuation of a historic use. You're being asked to approve a substantially larger commercial operation under modern today's regulations and today's environmental conditions, knowing the history of the last 38 years, not just assuming, as was indicated, that it hasn't changed and that it's as beautiful and perfect and everything's exactly the same. We've all learned a lot about public health and environment since then. The question before you is not whether the operation might work if everything goes perfectly. The question is whether the applicants have demonstrated that it can operate without putting the burden of failure onto the neighboring residents, the public recreation areas, and the mill pond. They have not demonstrated that, and they still haven't offered to monitor water quality, which further speaks volumes. For those reasons, we respectfully ask that you deny the requested permits. I would also just like to note, finally, that two things. One is that the right to farm is a lot more limited than was presented tonight. And the applicants initially tried to bulldoze the Conservation Commission by threatening them with the right to farm as well. I urge you to look carefully at the language in that and how it's been applied in the past. It is not applicable here, as my neighbor Jean explained to you. Not yet, anyway. Finally, I'd just like to note, I'd like to submit a letter, and I drafted it, but after, and have it ready to submit, but after hearing everything tonight, I'm more inclined, if the board is going to continue things, to hold it and to respond to some of the net new things that were said here tonight, quite surprisingly. Lots of new info shared for the first time by the applicants, and I'd like to be able to reply to that as well. However, if something must be submitted in order to be considered, I'd be happy to do that. Please just let me know. Thank you.
Anything that's submitted is helpful. It's more practical. So anyone is welcome to submit so this board can educate itself and make the correct decision of how to proceed.
That's great. My only question is whether I'd need to submit that tonight or whether the board would be open to my providing it.
Well, if the board decides to act upon this tonight, then you have the time you need, for sure. We'll find that out momentarily, perhaps. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
You have someone at the mic here.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I got to respond to Mr. Stain. I have to respond to Mr. Stain, sir. There were at least half a dozen things that you were told that are just flatly untrue, and Mr. Stain knows them to be untrue. He knows better than that. Mr. Stain's a member of the bar. He was one of the people who appealed the DEP decision, and he stands here and he makes misrepresentations to this board that I have to respond to. I'll do it briefly. The first one is frankly shameful. The statement that my client sued Mr. Gable is just flat out untrue. It is not true. I don't know where Mr. Stain's getting his information. Dockets in Massachusetts are public. There is no lawsuit pending against Mr. Gable from my clients. None. Absolutely false. What happened was, if we're going to talk about being neighborly, shortly after my clients purchased the property, Mr. Gable went on their land and cut down about a half a dozen mature cherry trees over the property line and stacked them on his side of the property for firewood. In response to that, my clients, and I did it, so I know exactly what I'm talking about, sent a demand letter to Mr. Gable, and we sent notices not to trespass to keep neighbors off of the property from that happening again. I have been in correspondence with Mr. Gable's attorney, fine young man from down in Dennis, and we have not spoken about this matter since, I would say October of last year. There's no legal action pending against Mr. Gable. Unfortunately, he hasn't come back on the property, and he hasn't cut any more of my client's trees. So for Mr. Stain to stand here and say to this board that my clients are unneighborly and that they have brought a lawsuit against Mr. Gable, when in fact that is just flatly untrue, is, in my view, just outrageous. Just outrageous for a member of the bar to stand before you and make a flat-out misrepresentation of fact in a public setting about such a serious matter. That is terribly, terribly unfortunate. Now, with respect to all of the other stuff about the water quality and all the rest of it, Mr. Stain knows, because he was the appellant for the DEP, that the DEP has determined, as I told you earlier, that there is absolutely no alteration to any wetland resource area from this proposed project, and that there is absolutely no water runoff leading into Hallett's Mill Pond or any other wetland as a result of this project. And he knows that because he was the appellant. He was represented by a very competent lawyer from up in Wayland, a fellow by the name of Luc Legere, very good wetlands lawyer, and he had competent consultants in that matter. And we demonstrated to DEP that their concerns were incorrect. So for this gentleman to stand up here and make misrepresentations like that to you, as a matter of fact, is just terribly, terribly unfortunate. I'm sorry to even hear it. This is a horse of a different color, I said it again, from the concerns that have been expressed before. These are sincerely held, but we believe incorrect concerns that are coming from neighbors who may or may not understand the nuances of the farm laws in Massachusetts. What Mr. Stain just did is a whole different thing, and I object to it, and I would like the record to reflect my emphatic correction of those things that Mr. Stain just said. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And if I could just dovetail onto that, Dan Ojala from Down Cape Engineering, I really object to him saying that no site-specific manure management plans were done. What do my plans say on them? I mean, absolutely. There's a pad, there's a roof, there's a drain, there's covers. The extensive farm plan detailing all the items which we're handling, and it's probably the most important thing. Nobody wants a smell. These are two fine people that are moving up from New York, attorneys who want a beautiful home. It's a specimen property. The last thing they want is a nuisance, and there will not be a nuisance under their care. So to say that there's no specific plans when there is a plan is rather unfair. And he's throwing the kitchen sink and trying to confuse and muddy the water. But this has all been arbitrated through the DEP. We've pulled back the fences, more swales, this thick drainage calculations. This has been thoroughly vetted through other agencies and found to be not in effect, and to insinuate that it is definitely unfortunate. I would leave it at that, but certainly look at your own regulations. They do not say that variances expire. It says each applicant can apply for a variance, but if the variance has already been granted, you don't have to go back for that septic tank every owner to do that. It's absolutely nonsensical if they didn't run with the land, and they have been issued, and the same caretaker, Childs, has been monitoring this through all Bill Zekian's time, through when Z, or whatever his name was there, and now, and is still responsible for mowing and doing other agricultural type things on this. And I'd keep my foot in that door if somebody wants to start constitutional stuff where exactly what is a farm and what's been going on here, because it sure looks like a farm, and it's been maintained by the same gentleman for the continuity of that entire time, whether it's a little bit of lawn and field care or otherwise. But nonetheless, this will be a well-run farm. It's please visit the site. Please look at your regulations to see the mistruths which have been spoken, and we have site-specific plans, very detailed. These aren't, I think they had 8 permits for eight cows at one time. Maybe they didn't have them all, but I know they had more than 3, plus sheep, plus ducks, plus chickens. This was a perfect spot for a farm. It remains a perfect spot for a farm, especially with the site improvements that we've done and the DEP has approved. So to say otherwise is nonsensical. And I think once the farm is here, it'll just evaporate any concerns, because this will be a beautiful, well-run operation that's the picture of Cape Cod. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Previously, when I stood up, and if you're watching this on tape or at home and you skipped over it, I was at the mic about maybe 15, 20 minutes ago. I said we have a rat problem on Cape Cod, and I want to clarify it for the board and the people in this room. I did not mean that in the sense as the applicant, speaking for the applicant or this particular site. I meant that as a general statement, telling you people, the Board of Health, that Cape Cod has a rat problem. I mean, I'm sorry, it exists. A lot of backyard chickens on each one of our towns. Small people have even 5 or 6 chickens in their backyard. A lot of people feed with bird feeders. Rats are an issue on Cape Cod. The reason why I said it like that is because I wanted to acknowledge to you that the applicant is aware of that. And we will have a rodent management plan, something that we're going to use as opposed to pesticides. Because as I said before, hey, I've been in agriculture all my life now, 70 years. I grew up on a pig farm, okay? I had 70 acres in the town of Harwich. I grew it all. Rats are going to be an issue everywhere on Cape Cod. And certainly I think this applicant has shown that they're looking at everything in the future and will deal with it when it comes. Simple as that. But my comments, we have a rat problem. No way did I mean them specifically to this site. They're not even on the site yet. They don't even have animals there. So I meant that meaning we, Cape Cod. Thank you again for letting me clarify that.
Well, I'm surprised at some of Attorney Henchy's assertions because he sent me the letter indicating that I was being sued by the Bromps. In fact, sued for $98,000. And the assertion is that a representative of mine, an agent, a landscaper, cut down mature trees, mature cherry trees. Hogwash. Those trees are junk trees. They're junk cherry trees. And I have photographs to indicate that they were dead, if not dying. And I would be happy to supply those photographs to the board if you'd like to see more. Furthermore, Attorney Henchy's letter to me indicating that I was being sued by the Bromps included some information from Mr. Ojuwan, and the assertion was that those trees were on the Bromps property, but that was never proven. The property was never surveyed. From my perspective, a stone wall separates the two properties, and many, if not most, of those trees were on my side of the stone wall. Now, Mr. Ojuwan's submission was not based on a survey. It was based upon his wet finger in the air determination of where he thought the line existed.
Don't perjure yourself. It's.
I think this is getting off the point of what we're doing here
you guys,
tonight.
We can argue all day about trees. They're surveyed. They were on the Bromps property, but
I don't think that's relevant right
Please,
now.
please supply me with the
you.
survey.
You can't both speak at the same time. We don't want to miss something.
They are surveyed. They're on the Bromps property, every one of them.
Then I would ask you to supply me with the survey.
Your attorney asked for one, and we provided it, to my knowledge.
Let's move on from this specific topic.
Please.
Well, the problem is that the Bromps did sue me. It was asserted that they did not. I have a letter that I would be happy to submit to the board
Sir,
that
you're welcome
indicates
to
that
do that, but right now, I don't think it's very helpful for the people listening or for the board to be listening to whether those cherry trees are on your property or theirs.
I'm sorry, I'm just responding to an assertion.
Okay,
Thank you.
fair enough, sure.
I might just very briefly address some of the things that were raised. First is Mr. Henchy's attack. He's done a good job of attacking Dr. Gable through his letters, and also, attacking us for trying to, a group of us for trying to represent and help the neighborhood survive this so-called project. I think there might be some hang up. Just to clarify, I thought I had said it, but I think it was threatened to sue. There was a very threatening letter sent to him threatening to sue him, not only for the $98,000, but also for double or treble damages, claiming it was intentional without even asking him. So I apologize for maybe missing that word. I meant to say threatened to sue, and I think people may be getting hung up on the technicality about whether they in fact actually sued him in a court versus told him and threatened him that they would. Second, moving on to more substantive matters that are probably more important here. On the water quality issue, this claim that there was DEP found there was absolutely no alteration or runoff. DEP addresses alterations to the resource areas. They're not addressing water quality, to my understanding. And so I think that's just a gross overreading of what DEP said, and I don't think that the board should be swayed by that. Further, this point about no site-specific management plan, I mean, you can judge for yourself. You can go look at the Conservation Commission record, or we can submit it. I mean, it's extremely limited, extremely limited. It's not really a plan for how somebody is going to, in real time, manage this. It's a statement of, you know, we're going to have a container. We're going to put stuff in the container. But there's no sort of explanation of what happens if, you know, that goes south in some way. Further, this idea that an applicant can apply for a variance, I mean, it's the Board of Health's regulation. I'll let you interpret what your variance rules are, and I'll leave it at that. But this understanding that a variance runs with the land, despite what's said in that regulation, or what we all sort of know, seems a little strange to me. Also, this "it looks like a farm, smells like a farm, must be a farm" argument that was just presented, that's just patently untrue, and the Conservation Commission rejected that. In fact, there was a discussion by the Conservation Administrator at the beginning of their hearings saying that, you know, it is clear that this is an application for a new farm because there was no pre-existing farm, at least not in the requisite number of years to be able to claim that this was a continuation of a farm. There's also a case called Idlewild that goes into great depth on what constitutes continuing to farm and allows a farm to continue. I recommend it to you. If you go look at it, you'll see that this is not a continued farm. This is a net new project, as I said earlier in my remarks. You know, I think you heard Mr. Ojala acknowledge that they didn't actually have all the animals on the property that they applied for. You can draw conclusions that you will, given the coliform type damage that was done to Mill Pond anyway. And I think, you know, Mr. Kakunis' comments speak for themselves. He said, we will have a rodent management plan. I mean, they're in front of the Board of Health. There are concerns about rodents. Saying that we will in the future at some point have one is not adequate. I think a fulsome plan is in order, and the board ought to review that and make sure that it is in fact fully adequate. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, we're back on the subject now, so I'd like to make a couple of quick comments. With regard to the DEP decision, I think terms are important here. What DEP determined is that the work here, this farm, would not alter any wetland resource area. Now, wetland resource areas in this context mean the freshwater wetland, the salt marsh across the street, and the pond. And I want to read to the board the definition of alter so you understand exactly what we're talking about. This is from the wetlands regulations. Alter means to change the condition of any area subject to protection under the Wetlands Act. Examples of alteration include, but are not limited to, the changing of a pre-existing drainage characteristics, flushing characteristics, salinity distribution, sedimentation patterns, flood patterns, and flood retention areas. And I'm skipping down, and this is the most important one. The changing of water temperature, biochemical oxygen demand, and other physical, biological, or chemical characteristics of the receiving water. Any change to the characteristics of that pond, which resulted from this project, would prohibit DEP from issuing the decision they did. Instead, they determined, based upon Dan's plans and based upon the extensive materials that were submitted, that nothing was proposed here would in any way alter that pond. And that means, as a result of the operation of this project, there will be no changing of water temperature, biochemical oxygen demand, or any other physical, biological, or chemical characteristics of the water in that pond. That means no biochemical oxygen demand, no fecal matter because it's a biological change, no salinity changes, that means no freshwater runoff into the pond, absolutely no change to any of these wetlands as a result of this work. And I think it's important for the board to understand, because that's the significance of that DEP decision. I'll give you the regulation. It's at 310 CMR 10.04 in the definitional sections of the Massachusetts Wetland Regulations. And lastly, I know all about the Idlewild case. That was my case. I represented the abutters there. We were challenging whether or not a person who had filled some 20 acres of cranberry bogs was engaged in normal maintenance and improvement of land that was in agricultural use. DEP determined that they were not. And that was the case it took me 5 years to get a decision out of. So I'm very familiar with that case, and that it really is very wide of the mark here. It has nothing to do with what's involved here. There's no claim, I think, from anybody that my clients are doing anything that is not normal maintenance and improvement of land and agricultural use. And I think we've acknowledged that we're recommencing the agricultural use, and we've acknowledged to DEP and to the Conservation Commission that none of the uses that are proposed out there are grandfathered as land in agricultural use. So I'm happy to submit the Idlewild case if you want to read it. That was my case. I know exactly what that case is about. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your patience. I appreciate it. No, I do. I do. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kathy Herity. I live at 122 Water Street with my husband, Michael. We respectfully object to the applicant's proposed site plan as it shows non-compliance with the location requirements of Stable Regulation Section 202-2C and 202-2F. Section 202-2C requires that stables, corrals, paddocks be located not less than 50 feet from any adjoining property lot or the line of any street, court, or passageway. Based on the applicant's site plan, the corral extends towards the fence line along Water Street to the right of the barn driveway. From the information provided, it is not evident that the required 50-foot setback from the property line will be maintained. We request that the board require the applicant to demonstrate through a surveyed measurement that the corral complies with the mandatory setback requirement of 202-2C. Section 202-2F requires stable corrals and paddocks to be located not less than 100 feet from wetlands. Based on the applicant's site plan, the corrals are located within 100 feet of the adjacent wetlands. This is of particular concern because the wetlands are directly across Water Street from our property, as well as the corner of Water Street and Hillsea. And the Water Street Hillsea is omitted from the site plan. Compliance with the required wetland setbacks is important to protect these environmentally sensitive areas from potential impacts associated with livestock operations, including runoff and waste. We respectfully request that the board verify through accurate measurements that the proposal complies with the 100-foot setback required by Section 202F. Given these discrepancies, we ask that the board require the applicant to provide sufficient evidence demonstrating full compliance with both 202-2C and 202-2F before proceeding with this application. Thank you.
Thank you. And maybe someone here can answer the question of, there seems to be some discrepancies between the application that went to conservation and the one that came to us, which I haven't seen. So maybe someone can clarify that.
There is zero discrepancy. It's the exact same application. I pulled the language from that first application. The number of animals has not changed. There's no difference in the application.
That was Natasha Brahms speaking, but for the
Natasha Brahms speaking. There's no difference.
And Dan Ojala, if I could just reiterate again, it's nonsensical to say that there were not variances granted on this for exactly what's there now. The beautiful stone walls formed the pastures for years. Everyone remembers it, and you can see it. And This is it's in your packet, so if you look in on the, on about page 30 or so out of the 60, you'll see the blue, it's the only blue plan in there, has the green lines for all the pastures, even the gated garden area shown there. And those variances were all granted, and the fencing is all there. And I would say that between conservation, I would clarify one little thing, that when we went to the DEP, we pulled away from the wetland just a little bit more with the fencing, but that was the only change. The swale remains, everything's the same, drainage calculations hold up, everything's identical, except we did it just a little bit further from the wetland along that east border. That would be the only little change.
Mr. Chairman, Attorney John Kenny, in March of '88, the variance you have in your file, the stable license was granted for 32 animals on the property. We're asking for 32 animals now. The variance in 1988 was to allow the corral and fence to be less than 50 feet from the roadway. And they are less than 50 feet. We don't have to meet that requirement in today's ordinance because we have a variance, and the variance runs with the land. In August of 1990, a variance was applied for and received relating to the location of the stable. Moved that the following variances be granted: from the required 250-foot setback from the high water mark of a shellfish area, variance granted of 190 feet. It doesn't mean it has to be 190 feet away. It was the amount of the variance was 190 feet. From the required 50-foot from a property line, granted variance of 20 to 40 feet on the Mill Lane and Water Street site. B, granted variance of 25 to 30 feet on the southeasterly side, James Booth property. Then there was a variance to allow more than 6 cattle with no stable located on the south pasture, and the fence shall be 100 feet from the Booth's home. So all these arguments that the current ordinance setback requirements apply to this property are wrong. We have a variance. The variances run with the land. Unless there's a termination date in the variance continues to run. As Dan has said multiple times, if you get a Title V variance, the new property owner doesn't have to come in and reapply for that Title V variance. That's absurd. It runs with the land unless there is a termination date in it. And that's general Massachusetts law, right? I think it's Huntington versus the Zoning Board of Appeals of South Hadley is a case that states variances and conditions run with the land, not with individuals.
But nonetheless, we need a stable permit. That's why we're here. It says that clearly, those you have to apply for every year. And so you'll be hearing from us every year on this.
Could I make a comment here?
Of course.
So, in light of the fact there's so much objection to this, my thought is, where we still have other issues we have to decide tonight, if we wait till after we make our site visit to resume this whole discussion. Does that make sense? Because, there's so many conflicting views here that I think once we see the site, we can determine for ourselves, based on what these variances indicate, whether or not, any of these other allegations are correct. Right now, we're just hearing back and forth discussion that could go on all night.
And I'd like to add that we need to see some more documentation of the previous variances that were requested, because our packet was not, it didn't have everything I think we needed to see to help us decide. So I agree with Larry. I'd like to move to.
Could we do 2 weeks?
Yeah, we're really not
Well,
prepared.
let the board have a discussion, okay?
At this point, we're certainly not prepared to
No. Oh, no.
make any decisions. So
No.
why don't we get all our facts in a row first?
Well, we need to move, though, to delay the discussion until at least after we've had the site visit and had a chance to review some more of the documentation from the health department.
Right. Make that into a motion, just since time limits, it's been a long time we've been waiting for this, so it suddenly appears in the packet, not all the information quite yet. So I don't think we need to be influenced by anyone but ourselves, the timetable here.
Well, there's some
that's all.
strong feelings here, and we want to make the right decision.
Absolutely.
Just need to get all our ducks in a row here,
Right.
so to speak.
If it's helpful, Mr. Chairman, I think we submitted with our application everything that we were able to find from the Board of Health's file. So I think when you have the opportunity to take a look at that packet that we submitted, I think
We'll
you'll
get you that
find-
electronically.
Okay.
And as far as the continuance, we're happy to work with the board and set up a date for a site visit. As long as we can pick some dates here while we're all got our calendars in front of us. I think Dan has Mr. Ojala has a commitment, right?
23rd, I'm out away for a week, but if we can do the 20th, it'd be great, and next week is obviously open, but other than that, I'm only away for a week, so.
I think the board will make a decision on that, okay? We need to decide dates and people in their calendars. We all have lives, okay, other than meeting here every other week, okay? So I think we need to figure that out and try to coordinate something, okay, for sure.
Should we do it with Dan then?
Yeah, when are you going to be away, Dan?
We're gonna have a
No,
site
not
visit with
till the
somebody.
23rd, so, you know, if we did the site visit sometime late next week and had the meeting on the 20th, that's fine. If not, just have the site visit before, you know, prior to the 20th and go to the next meeting. But, you know, the Browns would love to, you know, start operation. We've got all our other permits in place, but I know you need a little bit of time, but, you know, as soon as we can reasonably do it, would appreciate it.
There's been more information that's been presented and a lot of discrepancies than.
Alleged discrepancies, may I say.
Since I have been on the board a long time now, okay? So it's complicated, a lot of details. It's information that many of us don't have any expertise in. It's complicated. We want to make the right decision. We're responsible for protecting the environment, the people in town, the animals on our property. So it is complicated. You probably have spent a lot more time on this, many of you, than we have. So we're starting out with this. Just keep that in mind. I mean, we take this very seriously.
We understand completely, Mr. Chairman. I will just say, from our point of view, it is profoundly frustrating to be told black is white and to be constantly portrayed as being combative when we're simply trying to correct things that are misstatements. I understand this. You guys are getting this cold, and you're up there drinking to a fire hose with all of this information coming at you, and appreciate that. And I think a site visit is an excellent suggestion. And for one, I think the board should take whatever time it needs to make what it feels is a good decision.
Why don't you just send Barry the dates that you're not available, and we'll figure something out among ourselves that we can find a time, okay? We don't need to use up this meeting time to establish that, okay?
I suppose that's fair, as long as it doesn't have to be to a time and date certain, the continuance, whatever you'd think. I probably should continue it for 2 weeks, just so we can continue it again if we can't come up with an exact date, but just a suggestion.
So, once again, once you give the exact dates, your availability to Barry, and then we'll figure this out with Barry and get a time window that all of us can join you, okay? So
Mr.
I'm not going to make that decision. I'm asking the board not to, but the board can vote otherwise.
I
Yes.
think Dan was just suggesting, instead of an open-ended continuance, I think you have to continue it to a time and date certain, and if we can't meet on that date, another continuance.
So we need, you're saying.
This is
from
just a
legal-
point of
from a
order.
legal- Just a second. If you have something to say, come to the mic, please. But, so you're saying legally, we need to just establish a date to recontinue the discussion. Is that what you're saying? Because we're certainly going to continue the discussion at our next meeting. Unless the board wanted to make a decision tonight.
We wouldn't ask you to do that.
No.
Well,
Just saying, you said to send in when Dan can be there, and you'll figure something out.
Yes.
I just think to continue the hearing for tonight, you have to do it to a time and date certain, so I would recommend do it for 2 weeks, and if the meeting can't take place, we'll just send a letter requesting an additional continuance.
Days
For your
before, so.
protection, I think you need to go to a time and date certain.
You're saying for the discussion at the next meeting, or you're saying this site visit? Site visit is optional, obviously.
You want to do a site visit, and you want to continue tonight's hearing.
Yes, that's all, at our next meeting.
Yeah, so you continue it to your next meeting.
Correct.
Great.
Yeah, no, we're not leaving this alone, obviously.
On the 20th at 5 o'clock.
So,
Thank you.
okay,
And tomorrow you'll have full-size prints, I guarantee you that. I'll run them right down.
May I suggest, Mr. Chairman, that the chair take a motion to continue the public hearing to the 20th?
Yeah, I think we're in the middle of that, actually. I interrupted you, Mary. I think you're trying to make that motion just so we'll continue it on that date.
I move that we will continue the public hearing until the next meeting of the Board of Health on July 20th.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, I hope. Just raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
So let's move on.
Really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Ask one quick question for clarification on the public meeting. One
Yes,
quick question.
sure.
Lisa Grady from 415 Route 6A in Yarmouth Port. Real quick question on the clarification for a public meeting, a site meeting, site visit. Is the public invited to that as well, too? Does there have to be notice given in the paper so that the public is invited to the site meeting as well, as it is with other boards?
No, because they won't do it all together. If they all go at the same time, then there'll be
Understand that
a
then.
quorum. They'll have to do it two separate.
Okay, I understand that part then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for coming in, everyone. Anyone on the board need to take a 2-minute break? Or anyone? Mary, you okay?
Good.
Larry, you
I'm
all
good.
right? Mary, Larry, keep going? Keep going, let's go. Okay, we're up to number 6 here, Shaw's plastic variance request.
Next.
You're a bad person. You're a marionette for the New York people. Shame on you.
Hey, leave, please, leave.
What did he say?
Said he's a marionette for the sheep people.
What?
It didn't make any sense.
Oh. Was he part of this group?
Yeah. Emotions are running high.
Everything okay out there? I'm just concerned about people's safety. I don't know what just took place, so, but, seem okay, if not?
Now, do you have sheep or goats? Oh, okay.
But you have plastic, right?
Plastic.
Plastic goats?
No, plastic containers.
Doesn't sound good.
Okay. So we're finally hearing from you then. Okay. Where is that piece of paper?
It's deep breath 3 in, hold it for 4, and then exhale for 5, everyone, and we'll move on. Okay, okay, change the themes here. Once again, it's Sean's plastic variance request. Barry, bring us up to date.
So, as we all know, with the plastic ban went into effect January 1st. We sent out notices to all the establishments out there, gave them the opportunity to give waivers, and ask for variances. 99% of the people did. I went and talked to Shaw's, went and talked to the manager. It was, since they're a large corporation, it's out of his hands. So he sent it up the chain, and somewhere up the chain got
Something bent.
yeah, it got missed. So Mary, you had asked me to follow up with it, so I went back, followed up with it. Then I sent the corporation a letter saying you'll be in violation if you don't come. Got the green card back that they received it. They still didn't realize that they had to be here, so I went down to Shaw's today, talked to him, and then what's your name again? I apologize.
Brian McFarish.
Brian, he's the area regional manager, food and safety. He got the application in. I put in front of you right here, and he has all the waivers that he's looking for, all the plastics and everything. So this is just going to be like we have before. So
When was it submitted?
this morning, and 7 months after.
Right. So just to make the point, the board hasn't seen it.
Yeah, no, that board has not seen it yet, so.
Okay.
So did this not come to the corporation's attention at all? At all?
So my name's Brian McFerrish. I'm the Director of Risk Management and Food Safety for Shaw's, 146 locations within New England. All our licensing is done centrally in Arizona. We did a filing and an assessment for both this community as well as another community on Cape that had very similar
Right,
regulations.
Falmouth, yep.
Right? We filed in Falmouth through the licensing group, through the renewal process, and we all thought it was being filed here as well. Thanks to Barry coming down this morning, I got notified first thing this morning that there was a letter that was sent, and based on the way it was served and so on, it went out somewhere maybe in Boise, some corporate environment. We never saw it. Barry notified our store immediately, contacted me, and I just took it all back and filed what I had originally filed for Falmouth and here, and went in online, filed all the information. We do not want to be before you like this. This isn't how we want to operate. This was I guess, a lot of hands in the pot that things didn't necessarily get done, and thanks to Barry notifying us this morning, we had all the work done. This is an example of we're doing all the right things to meet the intent of the standard and the requirement. Paperwork didn't get processed. I will build a better relationship locally with Barry so these things don't happen again in the future, but we truly apologize that we're in front of you today. This isn't what we want to be. We want to meet the intent of this, just like we have in Falmouth and other communities. As each community creates another version of this type of legislation, we're actively working on reducing plastics in the environment every single day. So we did file it first thing this morning. We'll continue to work with Barry to ensure that we maintain the intent of it. We will make sure that as we're looking at alternatives, we continue to look at alternatives and packaging out there to meet both food safety requirements as well as the plastic piece. We have a central packaging committee, again, that's looking at this across the country to make sure that we're looking at state-of-the-art packaging as we go forward. We've made a lot of changes already that you'll see within the store, moving a lot of items to PET. I think there's over 60 items that moved from either polypropylene or to a more friendly PET package until there's something else. We've moved everything to clear packaging. Anything that's black-based, we've changed to clear base. We continue to work to meet the intent of the plastic reduction strategy, and truly apologize that we're in front of you today.
So you said you've made 60 changes already to products, representing what kind of volumes?
So a lot of them are on our bakery items for like clamshells. So we went to straight PET. A lot of packaging on ready meals to go. A lot of packaging for even packaging for takeout. Wings, those types of things have moved to alternative packaging. All our meat packaging went from polystyrene to PET. So we don't package. Obviously, polystyrene was one of the first pieces to go. But we continue to look at every category and adjust those categories when there's new I guess, options available.
So what are you finding most challenging to replace?
The need for consumers that want polypropylene to reheat items and finding an alternative for some of those products for convenience, for grab-and-go type items. PET, PLA, or any of those just don't hold up to heat or cold environments. They break down, and then you risk food safety related issues to the packaging. So we've looked at a variety. Film, overwrap, there's not really a lot of alternatives. Even simple things like deli bags. There's not a lot of materials to replace that deli bag with, but we continue to look at every category all the time and look at alternatives, and in many cases test alternatives to see if they actually meet the food safety requirements of the product and quality too, quality of the items that we're putting out for the consumer.
So when we have approved variances, we've usually put a date on them for when we'd like to have the applicant come back and give us a report on how they've done.
Okay.
And I would like to continue that with a big operation like Shaw's, as we've done with Stop and Shop. Because certainly you have much more volume than some of our individual restaurants and places that are seasonal and all. So I would like to move that we approve the application for the variances as listed here, with the knowledge that there have been 60 product changes already and that the company is continuing to look at what becomes available in the market. And I don't know if you ever talked to your competitor, but it'd be nice. We've found that, you know, individual restaurants and business owners in town have come up with things that they're willing to share and talk about with other people dealing with the same kinds of issues. But it seems to me if we had two big companies saying, look, this is what's starting to be required and what people are caring about, then maybe there might be some pressure you can put on some of the manufacturers and distributors, because we know that there's not a lot of choices out there, and that sometimes the choices that there are, they can't even up the numbers to meet the demand of places like this town and Falmouth and other places that have put plastic reduction in. So I'd just like to recommend that. But I do make a motion that we accept the variances and that we ask you to come back in the fall and let us know how much progression you've been able to make in terms of eliminating some of these products that are on here and maybe giving us an idea of how much use you have of these products in our store here in our town.
I second that.
Any further discussion or any discussion?
Can you set it?
October 31st.
Thank you.
I don't feel comfortable voting on or granting variances if I haven't even read the application, okay? I'm comfortable with the health department. Barry, you going over it at length. I mean, if you just got it as well, to make that decision. And if you don't feel comfortable, then it should come back to the board. Hopefully, it's all straightforward, well filled out. But as to vote on something I haven't read, I'm not willing to do that. Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion on the table here. So, all in favor of the motion, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? Okay, so 3-1 it passes. Okay, so you granted the variances, whatever they are on that application.
Thank you for
Okay.
being.
All right, do well.
Thank you. See you in end of October. Thank you. And if you come fully compliant beforehand, reach out, let me know, and I'm pretty sure you won't, but let me know, and we'll keep in touch. I go over there a lot, so I'll talk to Andy.
We were in a partnership with Bunzel, who works with Stop and Shop as well, and we'll continue to leverage that and try
Good.
to see if we can
Good.
work collaborative on some of these big items.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, number 7 here, level 2 drought status update. Barry.
We have Mr. Jeff Colby, the director of the DPW. Jeff, I want to say thank you for being patient with us and coming in tonight. I highly appreciate it.
I only have one question. When did you walk into the room? How long ago?
I've
5
been here
o'clock?
about 2.5 hours.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, okay, then I wish I had known. That's just, it's not right. That's awful. I apologize. I wish I had known. Because I don't think this is going to take very long.
I hope not.
I said it
Certainly not
won't.
as long
How's
as
that?
goats and
No,
sheep.
we would have gotten you up right front, move ahead, and move you right up on the agenda, so I apologize. I didn't know anybody was coming in. No, I didn't
Well,
see.
the choices were to come in or Zoom in, and as painful as this was, I prefer to be in person, so.
I'm sorry, I don't know. So, an update. We'll see if we can move it along for you, okay?
Sure. I don't have too much of an update in that Massachusetts has declared that our region is in a level 2 drought. They do review that monthly, and the most recent review was June the 9th. So we're due in the next couple of days for another review based upon our close following of these declarations. I don't expect that it will be reduced, especially in the time of year that we're in. In fact, there's a chance it could actually be increased to level 3. There is another region within Massachusetts, which is the Northeast region, that's already at level 3. So these tend to kind of come in groups, if you will. And so given that our precipitation is still at the level that it is, and the more significant thing for for Cape Cod is our groundwater level is pretty low for this time of year. A little bit better than it was last year, but not much. And so that's just kind of a very high level kind of overview of where we are. Yarmouth doesn't have any control of that. This is something that the Department of Environmental Protection assigns to our area. And because we have a drinking water permit that's with Massachusetts DEP, we're required to comply with, as one of the conditions of the permit to provide drinking water, with the drought levels that they have and the requirements at each drought level. It's not that much different than other communities, although each community has their own water withdrawal permit, so their conditions might be slightly different, but it's very similar across the Cape. So the conditions we're experiencing and the levels and the requirements to meet those drought conservation measures are very consistent across the towns.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
I noticed in our packet, we got, at least I did, got several of these. So I asked our village store to post it, and I'm going to ask the library. Is that okay, Jeff?
Well, absolutely. And I would always direct people to the town website. There's some very good information there. I will say that Lori Rosala, our water superintendent, makes sure that's up to date. As soon as we hear if there's a change in the drought levels, we post that with the corresponding information. I will say, just to cover that, we're at level 2, which is significant drought. And what that means, according to our permit, is that all non-essential outdoor water use is banned except for watering of flower gardens with drip irrigation or handheld and watering cans. You can use those types of things, but not automatic irrigation systems. That's what DEP is concerned about at this level of the drought, because those are, can be put on for too long. The times are very difficult to manage how much water you're putting out, that type of thing. So at this level for us, they have said that the automatic sprinkler systems are not allowed. That will change if our drought level changes.
Right.
Level 3, which is the next step up, there's absolutely no outdoor watering, including those with drip irrigations or handheld hoses and watering. So we're very close to that right now.
I've been asked, just the supermarket people have stopped me, and neighbors have. People want more information. They want to know why are people still watering their lawns with automatic systems. And asking me only as I guess they knew I was on the Board of Health. And I explained that's not something the Board of Health is enforcing. I mean, if it reached to the point where there's lack of drinking water or personal hygiene, then we would have, I guess, take a stance on that and be more actively involved. Certainly, as you know, we put a lot of effort into the quality of water. So what I tell people is, to certainly contact your department, and, people don't want to tell their neighbors they shouldn't be doing it, and I don't blame them. You see some pristine lawns there, and, they get watered every day. You just see it, or the water in the street going down. You see it in the mornings. So I don't know if these people are just obstinate or whether they're not aware of the regulation. I think the water bills just went out. I don't think there's anything in it informing people of the current status or where to find out what the current status is by going to the website or or having a board up at the transfer station saying, to check the website or about the, level 2 drought. Or I don't know if people are aware or not. And so
it's a combination of both.
Okay.
Yeah. Most people are aware, but I think some people feel like I've seen people putting in new sod. Well, look at our Yarmouth Port Library. They just put in a whole new sod they're not gonna let that just dry up. I'm not sure what their reasoning was for doing that at this time, but they're gonna have to water that to keep it alive.
Yeah, I really can't speak to high-level hypothetical stuff, but if there is a concern, they can call the water department with the specific address. We do follow up. We've sent out plenty of warning letters, and we continue to do so. This topic has come up before the select board, which is our water commissioners. They're the ones that do have enforcement authority over this matter, and they've asked us to ramp up the education, but also a more strongly worded warning letter. We do have fines within our bylaw, so if we get to that point, we can certainly move in that direction, but it is a challenge dealing with fines, the administrative piece of it, and so we're really trying to focus on the education. And I think what we're seeing is that most people are complying. There might be some exceptions, and like I said before, happy to have people contact water division offices with those concerns, and we'll follow up. But I would say most people are complying, and I do agree most people know whether they are fully complying or not. That's, a call that they have to individually make. But I think most people do know that we're in a drought. We have been for a good year and a half now. It's not something that just popped up. I mean, sometimes when that happens, when we go from normal conditions to level 1, that can surprise people. But I would say most people shouldn't be surprised at this point, given the duration of this current drought.
Is there a reason? It seems like I watch the weather. I see all this rain coming across, just seems to diverge when it gets to the Cape. I don't know why. It's very aggravating when I see all this rain coming, and then it just seems to go north and south across the Cape, and geez, it's so frustrating.
Well, I will say I'm an engineer, not a meteorologist, so I don't really have an answer to that, but I have had people explain it to me, being
guess we can't
that we have the
hold-
Cape Cod weather shield over us. And I don't know if that's true or
You
not.
need to look up more.
Yeah, I mean, there must be some kind of a I don't know, a geothermic reason why that water just seems to go.
Bypass us.
It's just frustrating, when you see it, and you shake your head when we don't get any rain, and then we'll get day after day of cloudy weather, when other people are getting rain and we're not getting anything. It's just
Well, today,
frustrating.
for instance, it was some sprinkles, but we really need some soaking rains to make a
We need-
difference. Yeah.
With 7, 8 inches, we're down from what we should be.
Is there anything we can do to help you?
Rain dance? I don't, no, I don't know. We just need the precipitation. Yeah.
Would getting us, like we do get calls, instead of just forwarding them on to you, hey, would you want us to send a letter out, your letter out also, or would you rather have it come from your department? And
Any education is good. I mean, that's one of the things that the select board charged us with, is to make sure we're doing as much as we can. We have done some bill stuffers this year. We do bill quarterly, so I can't say that it's in every single bill that goes out, but certainly through the different zones, we have Yarmouth Port, West Yarmouth, and South Yarmouth, and they've all received notice at least once this year. It might not be every bill that goes out. We're trying to be very conscious of our, printing costs and the cost of, adding things to bills that people may or may not read. But certainly every year they get notice on one of their quarterly bills. I'd like to point people towards the website. I think that's got really good information. We can keep that real time as well, so that's a really good source. We've just done, at least for since the beginning of the year, we have these stands, the
There's
notice
one
of
in
people just
Yarmouth Port.
driving through. If you're a visitor, you don't get the bills, right? But at least you can now see the A-frame signs. So the A-frame signs are something that we modeled after another community that's doing something. So we're always paying attention to what our neighbors are doing, and if it's working for them, we could try to apply it here. But really, any education, you're talking to people at town hall. If you want to, send something out, I think that's all fine. I think that any word is good word to get out about where we currently are, because I don't think it's going to improve anytime soon. I really think we're in it for the long term. I hope I'm wrong, but that's what the pattern looks like.
You had mentioned, though, the signboard at the landfill, at the transfer station, rather. Like
We
used
can
it.
certainly add one to that.
Yeah, I mean, some of those signs we had at the beaches too, during COVID, could certainly say something about, enjoy the beach, but keep in mind that there are water restrictions because we're in a severe drought.
Right. Yeah, we have a couple of the A-frame signs out, but we could certainly expand that.
Once again, speak up. If you're going to be coming in, someone from your department, I feel badly what took place tonight. I just didn't know, okay? Just speak up. We'll get you up in the agenda.
Okay,
'Cause,
I
mean,
appreciate that.
you're usually right on target and you're succinct, and so.
Okay.
Thanks for
Great.
coming in.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right, thank you.
Sorry you picked a bad night.
Yeah, probably the worst ever, actually.
Yes.
No, I think we had another one there a
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah?
The tobacco
couple
one.
months ago.
Yeah, one of this?
Not sure what was that about, but we were here till after 8 o'clock.
It had to be
Of course,
tobacco.
we're still here, so it could
That's
could
true.
pass it.
Do you have the World Cup being taped or not?
I don't watch.
No, okay. All right. So, go. Let's keep moving along here. Plastic reduction regulation progress update?
So I would say everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing, and the ones that are, it's the cups are the big ones that we're finding out. Everybody's been coming in, trying to find stuff. I've been to probably 90%. I still have to get, I haven't gotten down to the beach yet, those establishments, just to see what they're doing. I will get to them this week. Last week was a short week, so. But overall, the people are doing it. They're trying. Still getting lots of calls, questions, asking me, "Can I have this? Can I do this?" And which makes me happy that they're trying and it's not blowing us off. So.
I noticed that Alltown Gas, you reached out May 6th, but there's still nothing from them. And also Peterson's did not send in an incomplete waiver information.
They're in compliance. Now,
Okay.
there might be one or two things that they're not, but they came in. I talked to her the other day. I'll go back out there. I'll go to Alltown Gas. I'll reach back out to them.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
yep.
Mary, just a question. Just looking at the chart, and we have variance/waiver ends. Now, not really a question just for you, but the importance of that, whether we're granting a variance or a waiver to an individual company. In what way is that?
Said these were variances.
I just see what on top.
So I grant the waiver when I'm doing it in-house. If they come here,
Right.
they're variances.
Right.
And they go with, and most of these are asked for a shorter time than what the extension that should the variance will end at the end of the 12/31 when their permit ends. So they'll need to come back again.
The variance as well, because very often when you think of variances, it doesn't end. In other words, you give a variance to a septic system,
That doesn't end.
It's
But
forever,
this is
right.
for
So
a
this
product,
still has
yeah.
the same date that a waiver would have an end point. Great, just want to clarify that.
Right.
Good. Anybody, anything else on that? Okay,
While we're on that variance issue,
yes.
the attorney brought up a variance issue with the discussion tonight about the farm.
Yes.
So when a variance is issued, even though it was 20 years ago, that variance still exists today? It doesn't have to be renegotiated?
If it's
Correct? Unless
If it's a
if the time limit wasn't put on it when it was issued?
a variance for a plastic cup is different than a variance for a structure.
Yeah.
They're gonna get a new plastic cup, a new replacement for that plastic cup, but they're not gonna get a new structure. It's a septic.
But
So
as far as setbacks and that sort of thing he was discussing, they were given a variance, say, 1990.
yep.
So unless if there was a time limit on that variance still exists today, correct?
Yep, it stays with the property.
It's part of the deed?
Yep.
Does that become, okay. Just so I understand that.
I had some questions though, because this copy of the stables, is this after you finished doing some?
That was printed directly from the website. That's what stands today.
The one that everybody else should have had,
This is the active one.
It is accessible to the public, and that is what they were citing as well.
but they weren't reciting.
No, because they wanted to sway you in their direction. You heard a lot of nonsense tonight.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because I kept looking and it wasn't what people.
Not how I remember. We had this one other case with horses, so that's where I think a lot of us learned a lot about the stables. So anyway, yeah, you're right. Okay, so review and approval of the minutes. This is June 15th, 2026. Did anyone have any edits to it? I didn't.
I moved it.
Yeah.
I wasn't
No?
here.
Yeah.
I was corrected one time. I said, oh, sure, well,
Someone put you away on that one.
I got a dope slap.
Yeah, okay,
that,
you responded well for now. Well, let's assume they're all accepted since no one has any edits. Okay, it's, minutes are accepted. Any announcements, anyone?
Yes, DY School again will be doing their free lunch service program at the high school in the back. Kids can go get a good lunch Monday through Friday. They're redoing that again this year. We just had the bike fair, which was, how many people did we have turn out? It was
We had like 7 kids come up,
but it
show
was
up.
7 more that.
7 more than 0.
Yeah.
And they all got free helmets to take home, so.
It was good. So we had the police were here. The next one right now is Ticks on July 9th, right here in this room, 1 to 3. The county be here talking about ticks and what to do and how to prevent them and what to do if you get bit by one. So that'll be nice.
The new entomologist, I hope, it's a she.
Yeah.
I hope she's as entertaining as the previous one was.
Oh, they're great. They all are. It tells you about who goes into the field. Is there any chance they can also address the issue of mosquitoes at the same time?
I will ask.
That's stuff that they're going to know very well. So,
I can ask a question. I'm going to be there, so.
okay.
Yeah.
You'll raise your hand?
I'll raise my hand.
Thank you, Mary.
Cooling centers. The senior center was a cooling center, and the police station was a cooling center. I'd make sure that we had gotten that out. We got that out on the website. It came in handy. There's people there for
Had
it.
some
So
power outages.
yeah, it was very hot. So we definitely know we have those for our next heat wave when it comes. We have those available. I know we have talked about it for a while. The NFG, the 25th town in the Commonwealth, another town just went. I'm not for sure what town it was. So
I think it was Northampton.
so yeah,
Was
I
it,
forgot
was
to
it
write it down.
East Hampton? Was that it?
Not Northampton? I don't know. I can't
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
I thought that's what
I
you had
also
said.
have an article from the Boston Globe that I copied to bring tonight, and somehow it didn't get back into my envelope. So I think I'll just go ahead and send it out to you. But it quotes Bob Collette, and it talks about the whole initiative and some of the things that are being discussed with it statewide. So.
One interesting thing also came out, I think it was one week I think it was in April, where the federal guidelines for nicotine content were pulled, and the Philip Morris stock went up 18% or 11%, I think. Obviously, be able to put more nicotine into the products, and leading to more addictions.
Things too have been just approved for smoking cessation.
Yeah, the nicotine levels are skyrocketing, unfortunately. Anything else?
Good. The next meeting's the 20th.
Yes.
That was already discussed. So.
Okay, that would lead us to number 11.
I motion that we adjourn tonight's meeting.
Second.